Okay, let's play some damn chess. Damn. Slut from China. Street whore.
Was Stuart Hameroff, and he had spent 20 years putting people... Imagine a box. Inside the box is a gun, a particle detector, and you. The detector measures the spin of a single electron. If the spin points up, nothing happens. If the spin points down, the gun fires. You press the button. The detector measures the particle. And here is the part that should terrify you. According to quantum mechanics, the electron does not choose. It does not land on up or down. It exists in both states simultaneously until the moment of measurement. Which means, at the exact instant you press that button, the universe does something unspeakable. It splits. In one branch, the detector reads up. You hear a click. You walk out of the box alive, your hands shaking, your heart slamming against your ribs. In the other branch, the detector reads down. The gun fires. But you never hear the shot. You never experience that branch. From the perspective of any outside observer, there is a version of you that is dead. But from your perspective, from the inside, you always survive. You always hear the click. You always walk out. This is not philosophy. This is not a metaphor. This is the mathematical structure of quantum mechanics. This is not a metaphor. Always walk out. This is not philosophy. This is not a metaphor. This is the mathematical structure of quantum mechanics taken to its logical, horrifying conclusion. And it raises a question that physics has been trying to bury for almost 30 years. What if the mathematics of the universe literally forbid you from ceasing to exist? And that discovery should have been the end of it. It wasn't. This thought experiment has a name. It is called quantum suicide, and it was first described in the late 1980s by Hans Moravec and Bruno Marchal independently. But for over a decade, it stayed where most uncomfortable ideas in physics stay, in footnotes, in after-hours conversations at conferences, in the kind of papers that get submitted and then quietly shelved because the implications are too large for anyone to want their name attached. Nobody wanted to do the math. Nobody wanted to follow the logic all the way to the end. Until someone did. In 1997, a physicist at the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton, named Max Tegmark, sat down and did something dangerous. He took the most controversial interpretation of quantum mechanics, the one most physicists quietly ignore at dinner parties, and he followed it to its endpoint. The interpretation is called many worlds. First proposed by Hugh Everett in 1957. The idea is simple and violent. Every time a quantum event has more than one possible outcome, the universe does not pick one. It splits into separate branches, one for each possibility. Every branch is equally real. Every branch continues. Tegmark took this and asked the obvious question that nobody wanted to ask. If the universe branches every time a quantum measurement occurs, and if your consciousness can only experience branches where it continues to exist, then what happens when you die? His answer was quantum immortality. From your own first-person perspective, there is always a branch where you survive. Always a branch where the cancer misses a cell. Always a branch where the car swerves 1 inch to the left. Always a branch where your heart beats one more time. The math does not care about probability. It does not care if your survival is a 1 in a trillion chance. As long as the chance is not literally zero, a branch exists. And you, the observer, are always in it. You do not experience the branches where you die. By definition, you cannot. Death, from the inside, is not darkness. It is not nothing. It is simply a path you never take. A corridor that exists, but that you are always routed around. Think about what that means to right now. Every close call you have ever had. Every time you almost stepped into traffic. Every cell in your body that almost became cancerous, but did not. Quantum immortality says those were not lucky breaks. They were the only outcomes you could ever have experienced. Now, Tegmark himself is the first to say this might not work the way it sounds. He has argued publicly against taking quantum immortality literally. Decoherence, the process by which quantum systems lose their quantum properties when they interact with the environment, might prevent the neat branching that many worlds requires at biological scales. Your brain is warm. It is wet. It is noisy. It is exactly the kind of system where quantum effects should collapse into ordinary classical behavior almost instantly. And this is the standard objection, the one that lets most physicists sleep at night. Quantum mechanics is for electrons, not for people. The microscopic world plays by quantum rules. The macroscopic world, the world of brains and bodies and death, plays by classical ones. Case closed. But there's a problem with this explanation, a serious one. Because in the last 2 decades, we have discovered that the boundary between quantum and classical is not where we thought it was, not even close. In 2007, a team at UC Berkeley found evidence that photosynthesis, the most fundamental biological process on Earth, uses quantum coherence to transfer energy between molecules with near-perfect efficiency. The initial experiment was done at cryogenic temperatures, but follow-up studies pushed the findings closer and closer to biological conditions. The implication was staggering. Quantum effects might be operating in living systems, not just in theory, in practice. Then came the birds. European robins navigate using Earth's magnetic field, and the mechanism turns out to involve quantum coherence in a protein called cryptochrome in their retinas. Pairs of electrons with correlated spins react to the angle of the magnetic field, and the bird's brain somehow reads that quantum signal as a compass bearing. Quantum effects. In a bird's eye, at body temperature. The old wall between quantum and classical has not just cracked, it has fallen. And the moment it fell, the question changed. It was no longer whether quantum mechanics applies to living systems. It does. The question became far more specific and far more terrifying. If quantum effects operate in photosynthesis and bird navigation, is it possible that the most complex biological phenomenon of all, your conscious experience, is quantum too? And if it is, then Tegmark's equation is no longer about electrons in a box. It is about you. It is about whether the branching of the universe applies not just to particles, but to the thing that is reading meaning into these words right now. To the voice inside your head that just asks whether any of this could possibly be true. This is where the science stops being theoretical and starts getting personal. Because in 2023, something happened in a lab at the University of Michigan that no one can fully explain. A neuroscientist named Jimo Borjigan was studying dying brains. She had connected EEG monitors to patients in cardiac arrest, patients who had been removed from life support. What she expected to see was a gradual fading, a dimming signal, a brain shutting down. What she saw was the opposite. In the moments after the heart stopped, 2 of the 4 patients showed a massive surge of gamma wave activity. Not random noise. Organized, coherent, high-frequency brainwaves, the kind associated with heightened conscious experience, with vivid perception, with focused awareness. And the surge rivaled the levels of organized activity recorded during their waking lives. A dying brain, a brain with no oxygen, no blood flow, no heartbeat, was producing coherent gamma oscillations that had no business being there. The signal persisted for up to several minutes after the heart stopped. The paper was published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. It has not been retracted. It has not been debunked. It was replicated. A previous study in rats had shown the same gamma surge. And it sits there, quietly, in the literature, asking a question that neuroscience is not equipped to answer. Every neuroscience textbook will tell you that consciousness is an emergent property of neurocomputation, that it arises from the electrochemical signaling between neurons, that when the signaling stops, consciousness stops. Full stop. But Borjigan's data does not fit that story. If consciousness is produced by the brain, like a computer running software, then when you cut the power, the software stops. But if the brain is not generating consciousness, if it is receiving it, processing it, filtering it, like an antenna tuned to a signal, then cutting the power does not destroy the signal. It just means the antenna can no longer pick it up. And in those final moments, as the filters break down, as the antenna fails, maybe what Borgigan recorded was not a brain dying. Maybe it was a brain, for the first time, picking up the full signal, the full broadcast. Everything that was always there, but that the machinery of living filtered out to keep you functional, to keep you focused, to keep you sane. And once the machinery broke, the floodgates opened. Not into darkness, into something wider. Borgigan did not set out to prove anything about consciousness surviving death. She was studying brain activity during cardiac arrest. She was doing rigorous, controlled neuroscience. But the data she collected accidentally cracked open a door that leads somewhere no one in her field was prepared to go. And on the other side of that door, two men had been waiting for 30 years. The proof came from the last place anyone expected. In 1994, an anesthesiologist in Tucson, Arizona, did something that almost ended his career. His name was Stuart Hameroff, and he had spent 20 years putting people to sleep. 20 years watching consciousness vanish in seconds under anesthesia, and then return, fully intact, hours later. And the thing that haunted him, the thing that none of his colleagues seemed troubled by, was that nobody could explain the mechanism. They knew which drugs worked. They knew the dosages. They could predict with remarkable precision exactly when a patient would lose consciousness and when they would regain it. But they could not explain why. The chemistry did not account for it. Anesthetics are wildly different molecules. Xenon is a noble gas. Propofol is a phenol derivative. Chloroform is a chlorinated hydrocarbon. They share almost nothing in common chemically. And yet they all do the same thing. They all switch off the lights. Hameroff became obsessed with the question of what these drugs were actually targeting. Not which receptors they bound to. Not which ion channels they modulated. Something deeper. Some fundamental mechanism of consciousness that all of these different molecules were disrupting in the same way. And that search led him to the strangest structures in cell biology. Microtubules. Microtubules are protein tubes inside every cell in your body. They form the structural skeleton of the cell, the scaffolding that gives it shape and allows it to divide. Most biologists treated them as architecture, plumbing, the boring infrastructure that holds the interesting stuff in place. But Hameroff noticed something that nobody else seemed to care about. Microtubules in neurons are different. They are far more abundant, far more organized, and they vibrate. They oscillate at specific frequencies, including terahertz frequencies, which is the range where quantum effects become relevant. Each neuron contains millions of microtubules. Your brain has about 86 billion neurons. The total number of microtubules in your skull is a figure so large it stops meaning anything when you say it out loud. And they are all processing information at frequencies that no classical model of the brain accounts for. Hameroff started to wonder if these were not just structural supports, if they were, instead, the actual hardware of consciousness, quantum hardware. Now, here's the part that keeps physicists awake at night. At almost the exact same time, on the other side of the Atlantic, a mathematician named Roger Penrose was working on a completely different problem. Penrose was not a biologist. He was not a neuroscientist. He was one of the most celebrated mathematical physicists alive, the man who had proved that black holes were an inevitable consequence of general relativity, work that would eventually win him the Nobel Prize. And Penrose had become convinced that consciousness could not be computational. His argument came from mathematics itself, from a theorem proved by Kurt Gödel in 1931. Gödel showed that any consistent mathematical system, complex enough to describe arithmetic, will contain true statements that cannot be proved within that system. Penrose took this and made a breathtaking leap. If human mathematicians can recognize the truth of Gödel sentences, can see that they are true even though no formal system can prove them, then human consciousness is doing something that no algorithm can do. No computer, no matter how powerful, can replicate what happens when a mathematician grasps a Gödel sentence, which means consciousness is not a computation. It is not software running on biological hardware. It is something else entirely, something that requires a new physics. Penrose needed a physical mechanism. Hameroff had one. When they met, the theory clicked together like two halves of a broken key. Penrose provided the physics, a process he called objective reduction, a specific moment when quantum superpositions in space-time geometry collapse, not because of measurement, not because of decoherence, but because gravity itself forces a selection at the Planck scale. Hameroff provided the biology, the microtubules, the physical structures where these quantum computations could take place inside the brain. Together, they called it orchestrated objective reduction, OR. The theory says that consciousness arises when quantum superpositions in microtubules reach a threshold and collapse, selecting one state from many, and that this collapse is not random, but orchestrated by the microtubule geometry, connected to the fundamental structure of spacetime itself. Your thoughts are not electrochemical signals bouncing between neurons. They are quantum gravitational events, tiny collapses in the fabric of reality, happening billions of times per second, inside protein tubes so small that 2,000 of them laid side by side would span the width of a human hair. What happened next broke every model they had. For 2 decades, the scientific establishment dismissed OR. The objections were loud and confident. Quantum coherence cannot survive in a warm, wet brain. Decoherence would destroy any quantum states in femtoseconds. It was called pseudoscience. It was called mysticism dressed up in equations. Max Tegmark himself published a paper in 2000 calculating that quantum coherence in microtubules would decay roughly 1 trillion times too fast to be relevant to neural processing. Case closed. Again. But then came Jack Kaczynski. Kaczynski is a biophysicist at the University of Alberta, and he approached the problem from a direction nobody expected. He did not try to prove OR right. He tried to understand anesthesia. The same question that had haunted Hameroff 30 years earlier. Why do anesthetic gases switch off consciousness? Kaczynski and his collaborators found evidence that anesthetic molecules do not just bind to membrane receptors, as the standard model assumes. They also bind to specific sites inside microtubules. And their modeling showed that when they bind, they disrupt the quantum oscillations. The vibrations dampen, consciousness fades. When the drug clears and the oscillations resume, consciousness returns. Now, this is still debated. The mainstream view is that anesthetics work primarily through GABA receptors. But Kaczynski's data opened a second front. It suggested that at least part of the mechanism operates exactly where Hameroff said it would, inside the microtubules, at the quantum level. Everything I just told you, that was the comfortable version. Because if OR is correct, then consciousness is not produced by the brain. The brain does not generate your experience the way a light bulb generates light. It processes it, it filters it, it tunes it. The brain is a receiver. Think about what happens when you turn off a television. The screen goes dark, the speakers go silent, the program vanishes from the room. But the broadcast does not stop. The signal is still there, propagating through space, carrying the same information it always carried. The television did not create the program. It decoded it. Robert Lanza, a biologist at Wake Forest, has pushed this idea further than almost anyone. His theory, called biocentrism, argues that consciousness is not a byproduct of physical processes. It is the other way around. Physical reality is a product of consciousness. Space and time are not containers that exist independently and that life happens to emerge within. Space and time are tools that consciousness uses to organize experience. Without an observer, Lanza argues, there is nothing to observe. Not darkness, not emptiness. Nothing at all. And this is not just philosophy. Pim van Lommel, a Dutch cardiologist, spent 20 years studying near-death experiences in cardiac arrest patients. His research, published in The Lancet, documented hundreds of cases where patients reported vivid, structured, verifiable experiences during periods of complete cardiac arrest, zero brain activity on the EEG, zero blood flow, clinical death. And yet, these patients came back with memories, specific memories. They could describe conversations that happened in other rooms. They could report details about the resuscitation procedure that they should have had no way of knowing. The conventional explanation that these are hallucinations produced by a dying brain has difficulty accounting for Van Lommel's data, because a hallucinating brain is still a functioning brain, and these brains were not functioning. They were flatlined. Controlled studies have tried and largely failed to confirm the most dramatic claims. But the core finding, that structured experience persists during clinical death, has not been explained away. Van Lommel concluded that consciousness is not localized in the brain. It is, in his words, non-local. It exists everywhere and nowhere. It is not bound by the skull, and it is not ended by death. And that brings us to a law of physics that changes everything. It is called the no-deletion theorem. Proven in 2000 by Arun Pati and Samuel Bronstein, it is the quantum information equivalent of conservation of energy. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only change form. The no-deletion theorem says the same thing about quantum information. It cannot be erased. It cannot be removed from the universe. It can be scrambled, redistributed, transformed beyond recognition, but it cannot be deleted. If your consciousness is a quantum process, if OR is correct, and your subjective experience is encoded in quantum states within microtubules connected to the geometry of space-time, then the no-deletion theorem does not just suggest that consciousness survives death. It implies that the information that constitutes your experience cannot vanish from the universe. It can be scrambled, it can be redistributed, but deleted? The laws of physics say no. The pattern that is you, the quantum state, the specific configuration that makes your experience yours, has to go somewhere. It cannot simply stop existing. Up until now, this has been physics. From here, it's about you. In 1955, Albert Einstein's oldest friend, Michel Besso, died. Einstein wrote a letter to Besso's family. In it, he said something that most people read as a polite consolation, a kind old man comforting the grieving. But Einstein was not being polite. He was being precise. He wrote that Besso had departed from this strange world a little ahead of him, and that this meant nothing, because people like them, who believe in physics, know that the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion. Einstein died 1 month later, and he was not speaking in metaphor. In the framework of general relativity, Einstein's own theory, time does not flow. There is no moving present. There is no past that has vanished, and no future that has not yet arrived. Instead, every moment that has ever existed, and every moment that will ever exist, is equally real, equally present, equally now. This view of reality is called the block universe, or eternalism. In a block universe, space-time is a four-dimensional structure. 3 dimensions of space, 1 dimension of time, all laid out together, complete, from beginning to end. Your birth is in this block. Your death is in this block. This very moment, the one in which you are hearing these words, is a fixed coordinate in a structure that does not change, does not move, does not progress. It simply is. You experience time as flowing because your consciousness moves through the block, reading it sequentially, the way a needle moves across a vinyl record. The music feels like it is happening in real time, but the grooves were always there, all of them, from the first note to the last, pressed into the vinyl before the needle ever touched it. This isn't abstract. This is happening inside your skull right now. Your consciousness is reading the block, and when it reaches the coordinate labeled your death, it does not vanish. The block does not end. You end, in the sense that the needle lifts off this particular groove, but the groove remains, permanently, etched into the structure of space-time forever. You are not temporary. You are a permanent feature of the geometry of reality, and nothing, no force, no process, no amount of time can remove you from it. You are already written. The question is not whether you continue to exist. The question is what form that existence takes when the needle moves. And here is where the many worlds interpretation collides with the block universe and produces something neither theory predicted alone. Hugh Everett III formalized the many worlds interpretation in 1957 as his doctoral thesis at Princeton. His advisor was John Wheeler, one of the most important physicists of the 20th century. Wheeler initially supported the theory. Then he backed away from it under pressure from Niels Bohr, who found the idea of branching universes philosophically revolting. Everett left physics. He went into defense consulting, drank heavily, and died of a heart attack in 1982 at the age of 51. His daughter, Elizabeth, struggled with mental illness for years. She died by suicide in 1996. According to those who knew her, she believed she would join her father in another branch of the universe. Whether that is exactly what she wrote or how her family made sense of an unbearable loss, the story became inseparable from Everett's theory. His daughter took many worlds literally. She believed that somewhere in the quantum landscape, he was still alive. The scientific community treated Everett as a footnote for decades. His theory was considered elegant but untestable, a mathematical curiosity with no physical consequences. That has changed. In the last 20 years, decoherence theory, quantum computing research, and advances in quantum cosmology have quietly shifted the consensus. Today, the many worlds interpretation is the most popular interpretation among physicists who study quantum foundations. Not the majority, but the plurality. And the reason is simple. It is the only interpretation that takes the math at face value. Every other interpretation adds something to the equations, a collapse mechanism, a hidden variable, an observer effect, to explain why we only see one outcome. Many worlds adds nothing. It simply says that the equations mean what they say, and what they say is that every possible outcome occurs. Every single one. Now combine this with the block universe. If every moment in time already exists, and if every quantum branching produces real physical branches, then reality is not a line. It is not even a tree. It is a landscape. An incomprehensibly vast quantum landscape, in which every version of every event at every moment exists simultaneously and permanently. Every version of you is in this landscape. The version of you that is hearing these words, the version of you that turned this video off 10 minutes ago, the version of you that was never born because your parents took a different route home one evening in a year you will never know. All of them are real. All of them are permanent. All of them are embedded in the structure of existence, like insects in amber. Your body is doing this as you listen to these words. The atoms that make up your body are quantum objects. Every electron in every atom, in every cell of your body, exists in superposition until it interacts with something. Every interaction is a branching point. Every branching point produces new versions of the landscape. And your consciousness, if or is correct, is not riding on top of this process like a passenger on a train. It is woven into it. It is the quantum computation itself, threaded through the geometry of space-time, entangled with every particle it has ever interacted with. You breathed in air today that contains atoms that were once inside the lungs of Julius Caesar. This is not poetry, it is arithmetic. There are so many molecules in a single breath, and Caesar exhaled so many breaths, that statistically you inhale about one molecule from his last breath every time you breathe. And at the quantum level, entanglement does not care about distance. It does not care about time. Two particles that have been properly entangled remain correlated instantaneously, regardless of how far apart they are. Now, not every interaction creates entanglement. Physicists will be the first to tell you that. But if consciousness is a quantum process operating at the level Orc-Or describes, then the web of quantum correlations threading through your body extends outward in ways we are only beginning to map. Every interaction leaves a trace. Every particle of light that bounced off a stranger's face and landed on your retina carried quantum information with it. You are a node in a network that spans the entire history of the universe. And no deletion says that none of those connections can be erased. So let me return to the box. The box with the gun and the particle detector and you inside it. At the beginning, I told you that you press the button and the universe splits. That in one branch you die, and in another you survive. And that from your perspective you always hear the click. But now you know more than you did then. Now you know that the branch where you die does not disappear. It is in the block, permanently. And the branch where you survive does not disappear either. It is also in the block, permanently. And the you who pressed the button is not one person facing two possible futures. That you is a quantum state, encoded in microtubules, connected to the geometry of space-time, entangled with every particle in the room, and every particle those particles ever touched. The gun did not threaten to end you. Nothing can end you. The laws of physics do not permit the deletion of quantum information. What the gun threatened to do was change your coordinates, move the needle to a different groove, shift your consciousness from one region of the quantum landscape to another. Death is not an ending. It is a relocation. The signal does not stop. The broadcast continues. The antenna breaks, and the signal finds another antenna. Or it does not need one at all, because it was never inside the antenna to begin with. It was always in the field, in the geometry, in the block. Remember Borgigan's dying brains from the beginning? The gamma surge that was stronger than waking consciousness? Maybe now you understand what that was. Not a brain firing its last random signals into the void. A quantum system releasing its constraints, the filters falling away, the receiver breaking open and, for a few extraordinary minutes, allowing the full signal through. The patients did not experience more because they were dying. They experienced more because dying was the first time nothing was holding them back. And this is the part that should keep you awake tonight. Because if this is true, then the question is not whether you are immortal. The math suggests you are. The question is, what immortality means when you are not a soul floating in heaven, but a quantum state encoded in the permanent structure of reality. It means every version of you persists. Every decision you made and every decision you avoided. Every moment of courage and every moment of cowardice. Every kindness and every cruelty. Frozen in the block. Permanent. Unrevisable. You do not get a final judgment. You do not get a clean slate. You get a landscape. A vast, branching, permanent landscape of every possible you, stretching across every possible timeline, woven into the fabric of space-time itself. And you are in all of it. Right now. Always. If you cannot be destroyed, then what you do today is not temporary. It is eternal. Every act, every word, every choice is being carved into the geometry of reality itself, and no force in the universe can undo it. So the question is not whether you are immortal. The question is whether you are living like you are.
Suck my motherfucking dick. Bitch, you suck my motherfucking dick. Bitch, you suck my motherfucking dick. Bitch, you suck my motherfucking dick. Bitch, suck my motherfucking dick. Bitch, you suck my motherfucking dick. Bitch, you suck my dick, bitch. Suck my suck my motherfucking dick, bitch. It doesn't matter where you fucking go. You're gonna dick. You're gonna get a dick of your butt. Kiss that whore goodbye. Dumbass cunt. Dumbass. Suck my motherfucking dick, bitch. Suck my motherfucking dick. Oh my god, I almost fucked up. Oh, nigger! Kiss your fucking cats goodbye, you son of a bitch. Suck my motherfucking dick. Suck my dick, bitch. Bitch, you suck my dick, bitch. Bitch, you suck my dick. Bitch, you suck my dick, bitch. Bitch, suck my motherfucking dick. Bitch, you suck my motherfucking dick. Bitch, you suck my dick, bitch. Bitch, you suck my motherfucking dick. Bitch, you suck my dick, bitch. Time to dig up some fucking poems. Oh my god, I fucked up. Bitch, you suck my motherfucking dick. Bitch, you suck. Bitch, you suck my dick, bitch. Bitch, you suck my dick, bitch. Bitch, you suck my dick, bitch. Bitch, suck my dick, bitch. Bitch, you suck my motherfucking dick. Suck my dick. You suck my dick. Bitch, you suck my dick, bitch. Bitch, suck my dick, bitch. You suck my dick. Bitch, suck my dick, bitch. Suck my motherfucking dick. God damn it. Bitch, suck my dick, bitch. Bitch, suck my dick. Bitch, you suck my dick, bitch. Bitch, you suck my dick, bitch. Bitch, you suck my dick. God fucking damn it. Bitch, you suck my motherfucking dick. Suck my dick, bitch. Bitch, you suck my dick, bitch. Suck my motherfucking dick. Suck my dick, bitch. Bitch, you suck my dick. Bitch, you suck my dick, bitch. Bitch, suck my dick, bitch. Suck my dick. Bitch, suck my dick, bitch.
Imagine a box. Inside the box is a gun, a particle detector, and you. The detector measures the spin of a single electron. If the spin points up, nothing happens. If the spin points down, the gun fires. You press the button. The detector measures the particle. And here's the part that should terrify you. According to quantum mechanics, the electron does not choose. It does not land on up or down. It exists in both states simultaneously until the moment of measurement. Which means, at the exact instant you press that button, the universe does something unspeakable. It splits. In one branch, the detector reads up. You hear a click. You walk out of the box alive, your hands shaking, your heart slamming against your ribs. In the other branch, the detector reads down. The gun fires. But you never hear the shot. You never experience that branch. From the perspective of any outside observer, there is a version of you that is dead. But from your perspective, from the inside, you always survive. You always hear the click. You always walk out. This is not philosophy. This is not a metaphor. This is the mathematical structure of quantum mechanics taken to its logical, horrifying conclusion. And it raises a question that physics has been trying to bury for almost 30 years. What if the mathematics of the universe literally forbid you from ceasing to exist? And that discovery should have been the end of it. It wasn't. This thought experiment has a name. It is called quantum suicide, and it was first described in the late 1980s by Hans Moravec and Bruno Marchal independently. But for over a decade, it stayed where most uncomfortable ideas in physics stay. In footnotes. In after-hours conversations at conferences. In the kind of papers that get submitted and then quietly shelved because the implications are too large for anyone to want their name attached. Nobody wanted to do the math. Nobody wanted to follow the logic all the way to the end. Until someone did. In 1997, a physicist at the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton named Max Tegmark sat down and did something dangerous. He took the most controversial interpretation of quantum mechanics, the one most physicists quietly ignore at dinner parties, and he followed it to its endpoint. The interpretation is called many worlds. First proposed by Hugh Everett in 1957. The idea is simple and violent. Every time a quantum event has more than one possible outcome, the universe does not pick one. It splits into separate branches, one for each possibility. Every branch is equally real. Every branch continues. Tegmark took this and asked the obvious question that nobody wanted to ask. If the universe branches every time a quantum measurement occurs, and if your consciousness can only experience branches where it continues to exist, then what happens when you die? His answer was quantum immortality. From your own first-person perspective, there is always a branch where you survive. Always a branch where the cancer misses a cell. Always a branch where the car swerves 1 inch to the left. Always a branch where your heart beats one more time. The math does not care about probability. It does not care if your survival is a 1 in a trillion chance. As long as the chance is not literally zero, a branch exists. And you, the observer, are always in it. You do not experience the branches where you die. By definition, you cannot. Death, from the inside, is not darkness. It is not nothing. It is simply a path you never take. A corridor that exists, but that you are always routed around. Think about what that means for right now. Every close call you have ever had. Every time you almost stepped into traffic. Every cell in your body that almost became cancerous, but did not. Quantum immortality says those were not lucky breaks. They were the only outcomes you could ever have experienced. Now, Tegmark himself is the first to say this might not work the way it sounds. He has argued publicly against taking quantum immortality literally. Decoherence, the process by which quantum systems lose their quantum properties when they interact with the environment. Pick one. It splits into separate branches, one for each possibility. every branch is equally real. Every branch continues. Tegmark took this and asked the obvious question that nobody wanted to ask. If the universe branches every time a quantum measurement occurs, and if your consciousness can only experience branches where it continues to exist, then what happens when you die? His answer was quantum immortality. From your own first-person perspective, there is always a branch where you survive. Always a branch where the cancer misses a cell. Always a branch where the car swerves 1 inch to the left. Always a branch where your heart beats one more time.
Come on, you bitch.
The math does not care about probability. It does not care if your survival is a 1 in a trillion chance. As long as the chance is not literally 0, a branch exists. And you, the observer, are always in it. You do not experience the branches where you die. By definition, you cannot. Death, from the inside, is not darkness. It is not nothing. It is simply a path you never take. A corridor that exists, but that you are always routed around. Think about what that means for right now. Every close call you have ever had. Every time you almost stepped into traffic. Every cell in your body that almost became cancerous, but did not. Quantum immortality says those were not lucky breaks. They were the only outcomes you could ever have experienced.
Suck my motherfucking dick,
Yes.
you motherfucker. Suck
Definition,
my dick.
you cannot.
Suck my dick, bitch. Suck my dick.
As long as the chance is not
Suck my dick.
literally 0, a branch exists. And you,
Suck my
branch where your heart beats one more time. The math does not care about probability. It does not care if your survival is a 1 in a trillion chance. As long as the chance is not literally 0, a branch exists. And you, the observer, are always in it. You do not experience the branches where you die. By definition, you cannot. Death, from the inside, is not darkness. It is not nothing. It is simply a path you never take. A corridor that exists, but that you are always routed around. Think about what that means for right now. Every close call you have ever had. Every time you almost stepped into traffic. Every cell in your body that almost became cancerous, but did not. Quantum immortality says those were not lucky breaks. They were the only outcomes you could ever have experienced. Now, Tegmark himself is the first to say this might not work the way it sounds. He has argued publicly against taking quantum immortality literally. Decoherence, the process by which quantum systems lose their quantum properties when they interact with the environment, might prevent the neat branching that many worlds requires at biological scales. Your brain is warm. It is wet. It is noisy. It is exactly the kind of system where quantum effects should collapse into ordinary classical behavior almost instantly. And this is the standard objection, the one that lets most physicists sleep at night. Quantum mechanics is for electrons, not for people. The microscopic world plays by quantum rules. The macroscopic world, the world of brains and bodies and death, plays by classical ones. Case closed. But there's a problem with this explanation, a serious one. Because in the last 2 decades, we have discovered that the boundary between quantum and classical is not where we thought it was, not even close. In 2007, a team at UC Berkeley found evidence that photosynthesis, the most fundamental biological process on Earth, uses quantum coherence to transfer energy between molecules with near-perfect efficiency. The initial experiment was done at cryogenic temperatures, but follow-up studies pushed the findings closer and closer to biological conditions. The implication was staggering. Quantum effects might be operating in living systems, not just in theory, in practice. Then came the birds. European robins navigate using Earth's magnetic field.
I fucked his butt. You suck my dick, bitch.
Serious one. Because in the last 2 decades, we have discovered that the boundary between quantum and classical is not where we thought it was, not even close. In 2007, a team at UC Berkeley found evidence that photosynthesis, the most fundamental biological process on Earth, uses quantum coherence to transfer energy between molecules with near-perfect efficiency. The initial experiment was done at cryogenic on Earth, uses quantum coherence to transfer energy between molecules with
quantum coherence. Quantum coherence. You suck my motherfucking dick. Okay, start the goddamn game, you goddamn son of a bitch. God fucking damn it. Start the fucking game, you son of a bitch. You suck my motherfucking dick, you motherfucking bitch. You suck my fucking dick. Suck my fucking dick. Excitons? Come here, you goddamn motherfucker. You know another book you've never opened and read? A science book. You know another book you've never read? A science book. And he click. You suck my dick, bitch. You suck my dick. Now this is fucking bullshit. What the fucking is? Give me a goddamn tournament, you son of a bitch. Son of a fucking cunt.
with near-perfect efficiency. The initial experiment was done at cryogenic temperatures, but follow-up studies pushed the findings closer and closer to biological conditions. The implication was staggering. Quantum effects might be operating in living systems, not just in theory, in practice. Then came the birds.
Holy ghost.
European robins navigate using Earth's magnetic field, and the mechanism turns out to involve quantum coherence in a protein called cryptochrome in their retinas. Pairs of electrons with correlated spins react to the angle of the magnetic field, and the bird's brain somehow reads that quantum signal as a compass bearing. Quantum effects. In a bird's eye. At body temperature. The old wall between quantum and classical has not just cracked, it has fallen. And the moment it fell, the question changed. It was no longer whether quantum mechanics applies to living systems. It does. The question became far more specific and far more terrifying. If quantum effects operate in photosynthesis and bird navigation, is it possible that the most complex biological phenomenon of all, your conscious experience, is quantum too? And if it is, then Tegmark's equation is no longer about electrons in a box. It is about you. It is about whether the branching of the universe applies not just to particles, but to the thing that is reading meaning into these words right now. To the voice inside your head that just asks whether any of this could possibly be true. This is where the science stops being theoretical and starts getting personal. Because in 2023, something happened in a lab at the University of Michigan that no one can fully explain. A neuroscientist named Jimo Borgigan was studying dying brains. She had connected EEG monitors to patients in cardiac arrest, patients who had been removed from life support. What she expected to see was a gradual fading, a dimming signal, a brain shutting down. What she saw was the opposite. In the moments after the heart stopped, 2 of the 4 patients showed a massive surge of gamma wave activity. Not random noise. Organized, coherent, high-frequency brainwaves. The kind associated with heightened conscious experience, with vivid perception, with focused awareness. And the surge rivaled the levels of organized activity recorded during their waking lives. A dying brain, a brain with no oxygen, no blood flow, no heartbeat, was producing coherent gamma oscillations that had no business being there. The signal persisted for up to several minutes after the heart stopped. The paper was published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. It has not been retracted. It has not been debunked. It was replicated. A previous study in rats had shown the same gamma surge. And it sits there, quietly, in the literature, asking a question that neuroscience is not equipped to answer. Every neuroscience textbook will tell you that consciousness is an emergent property of neural computation, that it arises from the electrochemical signaling between neurons, that when the signaling stops, consciousness stops. Full stop. But Borgigan's data does not fit that story. If consciousness is produced by the brain, like a computer running software, then when you cut the power, the software stops. But if the brain is not generating consciousness, if it is receiving it, processing it, filtering it, like an antenna tuned to a signal, then cutting the power does not destroy the signal. It just means the antenna can no longer pick it up. And in those final moments, as the filters break down, as the antenna fails, maybe what Borgigan recorded was not a brain dying. Maybe it was a brain, for the first time, picking up the full signal, the full broadcast. Everything that was always there, but that the machinery of living filtered out to keep you functional, to keep you focused, to keep you sane. And once the machinery broke, the floodgates opened. Not into darkness, into something wider. Borgigan did not set out to prove anything about consciousness surviving death. She was studying brain activity during cardiac arrest. She was doing rigorous, controlled neuroscience. But the data she collected accidentally cracked open a door that leads somewhere no one in her field was prepared to go. And on the other side of that door, 2 men had been waiting for 30 years. The proof came from the last place anyone expected. In 1994, an anesthesiologist in Tucson, Arizona, did something that almost ended his career. His name was Stuart Hameroff, and he had spent 20 years putting people to sleep. 20 years watching consciousness vanish in seconds under anesthesia, and then return, fully intact, hours later. And the thing that haunted him, the thing that none of his colleagues seemed troubled by, was that nobody could explain the mechanism. They knew which drugs worked. They knew the dosages. They could predict with remarkable precision exactly when a patient would lose consciousness and when they would regain it. But they could not explain why. The chemistry did not account for it. Anesthetics are wildly different molecules. Xenon is a noble gas. Propofol is a phenol derivative. Chloroform is a chlorinated hydrocarbon. They share almost nothing in common chemically. And yet they all do the same thing. They all switch off the lights. Hameroff became obsessed with the question of what these drugs were actually targeting. Not which receptors they bound to. Not which ion channels they modulated. Something deeper. Some fundamental mechanism of consciousness that all of these different molecules were disrupting in the same way. And that search led him to the strangest structures in cell biology. Microtubules. Microtubules are protein tubes inside every cell in your body. They form the structural skeleton of the cell, the scaffolding that gives it shape and allows it to divide. Most biologists treated them as architecture, plumbing, the boring infrastructure that holds the interesting stuff in place. But Hameroff noticed something that nobody else seemed to care about. Microtubules in neurons are different. They are far more abundant, far more organized, and they vibrate. They oscillate at specific frequencies, including terahertz frequencies, which is the range where quantum effects become relevant. Each neuron contains millions of microtubules. Your brain has about 86 billion neurons. The total number of microtubules in your skull is a figure so large it stops meaning anything when you say it out loud. And they are all processing information at frequencies that no classical model of the brain accounts for. Hameroff started to wonder if these were not just structural supports, if they were, instead, the actual hardware of consciousness, quantum hardware. Now, here's the part that keeps physicists awake at night. At almost the exact same time, on the other side of the Atlantic, a mathematician named Roger Penrose was working on a completely different problem. Penrose was not a biologist. He was not a neuroscientist. He was one of the most celebrated mathematical physicists alive, the man who had proved that black holes were an inevitable consequence of general relativity, work that would eventually win him the Nobel Prize. And Penrose had become convinced that consciousness could not be computational. His argument came from mathematics itself, from a theorem proved by Kurt Gödel in 1931. Gödel showed that any consistent mathematical system, complex enough to describe arithmetic, will contain true statements that cannot be proved within that system. Penrose took this and made a breathtaking leap.
Bitch, you suck my dick, bitch. You suck my dick, bitch.
Of general relativity, work that would eventually win him the Nobel Prize. And Penrose had become convinced that consciousness could not be computational. His argument came from mathematics itself, from a theorem proved by Kurt Gödel in 1931. Gödel showed that any consistent mathematical system, complex enough to describe arithmetic, will contain true statements that cannot be proved within that system. Penrose took this and made a breathtaking leap. If human mathematicians can recognize the truth of Gödel sentences, can see that they are true even though no...
You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick. You suck my whore ass dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn stupid! Stupid. The stupid machine! Dumbass. You cunt. From China! Bitch, you suck my motherfucking dick. Bitch, you suck my dick, bitch. Bitch, you suck my motherfucking dick. Bitch, you suck my dick, bitch. Bitch, you suck my motherfucking dick. Bitch, you suck my dick, bitch. Bitch, you suck my dick, bitch. Bitch, suck my dick, bitch. You suck my dick, bitch. Suck my motherfucking dick. Suck my motherfucking goddamn motherfucking dick. Suck my fucking dick. Stupid! Stupid, 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 stupid. The stupid machine! You take a ride on the stupid machine! What a dumbass cunt. What a dumbass. Ah! What the hell? Look at all these fucking poems. Come on, you dumbass cunt. Come on, you dumbass. Suck my slut. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. Look at all these fucking poems. For fucking Christ or fuck. Suck my motherfucking dick. Suck my motherfucking dick, you motherfucker. March! Suck my motherfucking dick. Bitch, you suck my motherfucking dick. Suck my fucking dick. Suck my motherfucking dick. Suck my motherfucking dick. You suck my dick. Suck my fucking dick. Suck my motherfucking dick. Suck my fucking dick. Suck my motherfucking dick. Suck my dick, bitch. Suck my fucking dick. Suck my dick, bitch. Suck my motherfucking dick. Suck my fucking dick. Suck my motherfucking dick. You suck my Suck my motherfucking dick. Suck my fuck. Bitch, you suck my fucking dick. You're gonna lose that damn rookie slut. That's the way it is, dumbass. Kiss that rookie goodbye, slut. Street whoop. I fucked his hoe. Dumbass cunt. From China, you dumbass bitch. You suck my motherfucking dick. You suck my motherfucking dick.
There is a question that has haunted every philosopher, every physicist, every poet, whoever looked up at the stars and wondered what is time. Not what does it clock make, not what does it feel like to grow old, but what is time at its most fundamental, at its most naked, stripped of every assumption we carry with us from birth, and the answer that modern physics is converging on, slowly, reluctantly. With the full weight of mathematical certainty is the most disorienting answer imaginable. Time does not exist, not in the way you think it does, not as a river flowing forward, not as an arrow pointing from past to future, not as a container in which events unfold. What we call time is something far stranger, far more fragile.
You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch. You suck my goddamn dick. You suck my goddamn dick, bitch.
What physicists call the block universe, and it is the first piece of the puzzle.
Suck
in physics, the world we all grew up learning about in school, time is absolute. Isaac Newton himself wrote that absolute, true, and mathematical time flows equally without relation to anything external. He believed time was the same everywhere for everyone, at every moment, a universal heartbeat ticking in perfect synchrony across the entire cosmos. That was the world's assumption for over 200 years. And then along came a young patent clerk in Bern, Switzerland, a man who had spent years turning over a single question in his mind. What would it look like to ride alongside a beam of light? And when Albert Einstein answered that question in 1905, he didn't just change physics, he destroyed the idea of universal time forever. Relativity showed us something that still feels impossible when you first encounter it. Time is not the same for everyone. Two observers moving at different velocities through space do not experience the same flow of time. A clock on a fast-moving rocket ticks slower than a clock on the ground. A person traveling close to the speed of light ages more slowly than their twin back home. This is not a trick. This is not an approximation. This is what the universe actually does, confirmed by atomic clocks on airplanes.
Suck my motherfucking dick. You suck my motherfucking dick.
Exactly this effect. By particle accelerators where unstable particles live longer than they should, because they are moving so fast that their internal clocks, their very rate of decay, slow down. Time is elastic. Time is personal. Time depends on how fast you are moving. But special relativity did something even more radical than showing
suck my motherfucking dick.
Different rates
suck my
fuse
dick,
time and
bitch.
space into a single four-dimensional fabric called space-time. And in doing
Suck
so,
my
it revealed the block
motherfucking dick.
universe. In space-time, the past, the present, and the future all exist simultaneously. They are all equally real. Every moment that has ever happened and every moment that will ever happen is already there. Laid out in four-dimensional space-time like a landscape you could
Now fuck up and take that
all at
goddamn
once
night.
if you were standing outside.
Suck my
The
dick,
physicist Hermann Minkowski, who was Einstein's old mathematics professor, said it best when he declared that henceforth space by itself and time by itself are doomed to fade away into mere shadows. And only
Suck my
the
fucking
union of
dick.
the two will preserve an independent reality. In the block universe, your birth and your death are both already there, separated not by
fucking
time
Christ.
passing, but by coordinate distance in space-time. The you who is reading this right now, the you who was 5 years old on a summer afternoon, the you who will be old and gray, all of these exist simultaneously in the four-dimensional block. Nothing passes, nothing flows. The feeling that time moves, that we are
Bitch, you
carried
suck
from
my
moment to moment
motherfucking
like
dick.
leaves on a current, that feeling, according to the block
Suck my
universe,
dick,
is an
bitch.
illusion. A profoundly convincing, deeply human
Suck my
illusion, but an
motherfucking
illusion
dick.
nonetheless. Now I know what you are thinking.
Suck my
You are
dick.
thinking, but I
Suck my
experienced
dick.
time passing. I remember yesterday and I cannot remember tomorrow. There is clearly something asymmetric about time. The past is fixed and the future is open. How can time not be real if I am so obviously living through it? That is exactly the right question, and it leads us to the second layer of
Bitch, you
this
suck
mystery,
my
the arrow
dick,
of time. and why it points in only one direction.
Fucking dick.
Here's the uncomfortable truth. The fundamental laws of physics are time-symmetric. Almost every equation in physics, Newton's laws of motion, Maxwell's equations for electromagnetism, the Schrödinger equation of quantum mechanics, Einstein's field equations of general relativity, all of them work equally well if you run time backwards. If you filmed a collision between two billiard balls and played the film in reverse, you could not tell from the physics whether you were watching the original or the reversed version. Both would obey Newton's laws perfectly. If you filmed two perfectly elastic particles bouncing off each other at the quantum scale and reversed the film, both directions would be perfectly legal quantum mechanics. The laws of physics do not care which direction time runs. They are indifferent, symmetric, reversible. And yet the world we live in is violently asymmetric in time. You can break an egg, but you cannot unbreak it. You can mix cream into coffee, but you cannot mix it. You can burn a log, but you cannot burn it. You grow older, not younger. Memories song of the past, not the future. Why? If the laws of physics permit time to run in either direction, why does our experience of time have such a powerful arrow? The answer that physics gives us is both beautiful and deeply unsatisfying, and it comes from a quantity called entropy. In the mid-19th century, physicists grappling with the newly emerging science of thermodynamics discovered a quantity that behaved in a peculiar,
suck my motherfucking dick.
Entropy loosely, the measure of disorder or the number of possible arrangements
kiss that fucking whore goodbye.
Look the same from the outside, always increases in a closed system.
Kiss that
This is the second law of
kiss that fucking
thermodynamics.
whore
The
goodbye.
entropy of the universe tends to increase. Heat flows from hot to cold, not the reverse. Order spontaneously
Suck my
becomes disorder,
fucking
not
dick.
the other way around. And here is the crucial point. This is not because the underlying laws of from hot to cold, not the reverse. Order spontaneously becomes disorder, not the other way around. And here is the crucial point. This is not because the underlying laws of physics require it. It is simply
Bitch, you
because there
suck
are
my
vastly
dick.
more disordered states than the ordered
Bitch, you
ones.
suck
So
my
any random
motherfucking
change
dick.
is almost certain to move toward more disorder. When you break an egg, the pieces scatter into one of an astronomically large number of disordered arrangements. For them to spontaneously reassemble into an unbroken
Bitch, you
egg,
suck my
every
dick.
molecule would have to move in precisely coordinated ways. The odds are so vanishingly small as to be effectively impossible, not because any law forbids it, but because the universe is playing a probabilistic game of disorder wins overwhelmingly. So the arrow of time is not written into the fundamental laws of nature. It is a statistical emergent property arising from the fact that the universe started in an extraordinarily low entropy state. The Big Bang has been
Suck my
moving toward
fucking
higher entropy
goddamn
ever
dick.
since. But this raises a question so
Suck my
profound
dick,
that it
bitch.
stops many physicists in their tracks. Why did the universe start in such a special low entropy state in the first place? Why was the Big Bang so ordered, so tightly constrained, when a random universe would almost certainly have begun in high entropy? This is called the past hypothesis, the assumption that the early universe had very low entropy, and we do not have a fundamental physical explanation for it.
Suck
It is
my
simply a fact
motherfucking
we
dick.
observe and accept. The cosmologist Sean has argued that this
You
is
suck my motherfucking dick.
why was the Big Bang so ordered, so tightly constrained, when a random universe would almost certainly have begun in high entropy? This is called the past hypothesis, the assumption that the early universe had very low entropy, and we do not have a fundamental physical explanation for it. It is and we do not have a fundamental physical explanation for it. It is simply a fact we observe and accept. The cosmologist Sean has argued that this is the deepest puzzle in all physics. The arrow of time, the very thing that makes time feel real, that makes it feel like it flows in one direction, rests
you were one
in an
move
initial
away from
condition we
a
cannot
fucking
explain.
checkmate.
Time's arrow exists not because
Alright,
the laws
fuck
of physics
this.
require it,
Hold!
but because of a cosmic accident of initial conditions at the dawn of the universe. But now we need to go deeper still, because all of that special relative laws of physics require it, but because of a cosmic accident of initial
Through spit.
conditions at the dawn of the universe. But because of a cosmic accident of initial conditions at the dawn of the universe. But now we need to go deeper still, because all of that special relativity,
I don't think
the
so.
universe, the arrow of time and entropy, all of that is classical physics. It is the
The universe runs on order. Uzi
Physics of large objects, of macroscopic systems, of the universe as we can see, and measure it with ordinary instruments. When we descend into the quantum world, when we go down to the scale of atoms and electrons and photons, time becomes even stranger, and in some formulations it disappears entirely. Quantum mechanics is the most successful scientific
now
theory
fuck up and read
ever
this poem down
constructed.
here.
Its predictions have been tested to extraordinary precision in some cases, to better than 1 part in a trillion, and they have never been wrong. And yet quantum mechanics is deeply, fundamentally mysterious about what is actually happening in the world at the quantum scale. At the heart of quantum mechanics is the wave function, a mathematical object that encodes the state of the quantum system, not as a definite position or definite velocity, but as a superposition of all possible positions and velocities, each with an associated probability amplitude. An electron is not at a specific place before you measure it. It is smeared across all possible places simultaneously. And only when you make a measurement does it appear to snap into one definite location. The wave function evolves in time according to the Schrödinger equation, a deterministic time-symmetric equation that describes how quantum states change. But here is where something extraordinary happens. The Schrödinger equation by itself never produces definite outcomes. Left to evolve on its own, it just keeps all the possibilities superposed forever. When a measurement happens, when a quantum system interacts with a macroscopic measuring device, the wave function appears to collapse, to jump from a superposition of possibilities to a single definite outcome. This is the measurement problem, and it has been the central unresolved puzzle of quantum mechanics for nearly a century. Different interpretations of quantum mechanics handle this problem in different ways, and some of those interpretations have radical implications for time. In the many worlds interpretation proposed by Hugh Everett in 1957, the wave function never collapses. Instead, every time a quantum measurement occurs, every time the universe faces a fork in the road, the universe literally splits. Every possible outcome happens in its own branch of a constantly proliferating multiverse. In this picture, every moment you have ever made a choice, every coin flip, every radioactive decay of the universe has branched into parallel versions, each one equally real, each one running its own version of time forward. Time in the many worlds interpretation is not singular. It is a tree of branching timelines. Each branch is real as any other. But there is an even more radical development waiting for us, and it comes from the attempt to marry quantum mechanics with general relativity to build a quantum theory of gravity. General relativity, Einstein's masterpiece from 1915, extended special relativity to include acceleration and gravity. It told us that gravity is not a force in the traditional sense, but a curvature of space-time itself, that massive objects warp the geometry of four-dimensional space-time and other objects move along the curves of that warped geometry. It also told us something shocking about time. Time runs at different rates in different gravitational fields. A clock at the top of a tall building ticks faster than a clock at the bottom, because it is slightly farther from the Earth's gravitational field. The effect is tiny but real and measurable, and again GPS satellites must account for it. Because the clocks on those satellites tick faster than clocks on the ground due to being higher in Earth's gravitational field, and that difference, just a few microseconds per day, would cause GPS navigation to drift by kilometers within days if it were not corrected. In the most extreme gravitational environments near a black hole, at the singularity at the center of the black hole, in the earliest moments of the Big Bang, general relativity predicts that space-time itself breaks down. At these points, the equations produce infinities, and infinities in physics are almost always a sign that the theory is being pushed beyond its domain of validity. To understand what happens at those extreme scales, we need a theory of quantum gravity, a theory that combines the principles of quantum mechanics with the principles of general relativity. And when physicists seriously tried to do this, starting in the 1960s, they ran into something that many of them consider the deepest crisis in all of theoretical physics, something called the Wheeler-DeWitt equation, named after the physicist John Archibald Wheeler and student Bryce DeWitt. When you write down the quantum mechanical equation for the entire universe, when you apply the principles of quantum mechanics to gravity and to space-time itself, you get an equation that describes the quantum state of the entire cosmos. And that equation contains no time variable, none. The Wheeler-DeWitt equation is
just one of those bricks, you
describes a
slut.
static, time-independent quantum state of the universe. There is no variable in the equation that plays the role of time. Time has not been set to zero or eliminated by approximation. It is simply absent from the fundamental equation. This was deeply disturbing and deeply fascinating to physicists.
God damn it.
How can the most fundamental equation of the cosmos have no time in it? When every human experience screams that time is real, that things change, that events unfold in sequence. The physicist Carlo Rovelli, one of the founders of loop quantum gravity, has written beautifully about this problem. He argues that time is not a fundamental feature of the world, that in the deepest grammar of physics, at the Planck scale, at the scale of quantum gravity, there is no time. What we call time is something that emerges from quantum correlations between physical systems, from the way that different parts of the universe are tangled with each other and track each other's states. Time, in Rovelli's view, is something like temperature of property that makes sense when you are describing a large system of many interacting parts, but that does not have meaning at the level of individual fundamental constituents. You cannot meaningfully ask what the temperature of a single atom is. Temperature is a collective emergent statistical concept. Rovelli argues that time is similar. It is an emergent property of complex and tangled quantum systems, not a fundamental feature of the universe's underlying structure. And there is a remarkable recent development that supports this picture.
Now fuck up and leave this phone down here so I can dig at that
by
fucking
physicist
bitch.
Magdalena Zitch and her colleagues, building on work by physicists Koslov, Bruckner, and others, showed that in quantum mechanics, if you have a system with enough quantum coherence and enough mass, time itself can be in a superposition. There can be quantum uncertainty, not just about where a particle is, but about the ordering of events, about whether an event happened before event B or vice versa. This is called indefinite causal order, and it has now been experimentally demonstrated in quantum optical experiments. The causal structure of space-time, the framework that determines which events can influence which other events can be quantum mechanically.
Suck my fucking dick.
Events can be in a superposition of causing each other. The error of causality can be blurred. If that does not make your head spin, let me make it spin more.
Suck my
One of the
dick,
most
you
powerful
suck
ideas in modern theoretical physics is the holographic principle, which emerged from work by Jacob Bekenstein, Stephen Hawking,
Suck
Jerome
my
T.
dick,
Hooke,
bitch.
and Leonard Susskind himself in the 1970s
Bitch, you
and
suck my
1990s.
dick, bitch.
When Hawking calculated in 1974 that black holes radiate, that they slowly evaporate by emitting radiation now, called Dekenso, Hawking radiation, he found that the entropy of a black hole is proportional not to its volume but to its surface area.
Suck
That
my
was
dick.
deeply strange. Usually when you double the size of a system, the entropy grows with the volume, but black hole entropy grows with the area of the event horizon. This suggested
Bitch,
something
you suck my
that all
motherfucking
the
dick.
information in a three-dimensional region of space can be encoded on a two-dimensional surface, just like a hologram encodes a three-dimensional image on a two-dimensional film. The holographic principle says that the universe itself may be fundamentally two-dimensional, that our experience of three spatial dimensions plus time may be a kind of holographic projection from a lower dimensional fundamental reality. And in the most concrete realization of this idea, the ADS/CFT correspondence discovered by Juan Maldacena in 1997, a theory of quantum gravity in a higher dimensional spacetime, is mathematically equivalent to a theory without gravity in a lower dimensional spacetime. Time in the higher dimensional theory emerges from quantum correlations in the lower dimensional theory. Three-dimensional space and time are reconstructed from quantum entanglement. And this brings us to the most radical contemporary frontier. The proposal by physicists Mark van Ramsdonk, Netta Engelhart, Ahmed Almuri, and others that space-time, space and time together is literally built from quantum entanglement. When two quantum systems are entangled, when their quantum states are correlated in the deep non-classical way that quantum mechanics allows, that entanglement is equivalent to a geometric connection in space-time. The famous slogan is ER equals EPR, the Einstein-Rosen bridge, which is the theoretical wormhole connecting two distant regions of space-time that appears in general relativity, is in some sense the same thing as the Einstein-Podolsky-Rosen quantum entanglement that Einstein himself found so disturbing. Space-time emerges from entanglement. Geometry is quantum information. And if space-time itself is built from quantum correlations, then time is the dimension of space-time is also built from quantum correlations. Time is not the stage on which quantum mechanics plays out. Time is itself a quantum phenomenon, a collective emergent structure arising from a vast web of quantum entanglement threading through the universe. So where does all this leave us? Let me try to bring it together. We started with Newton's absolute time universal, flowing the same for everyone. Einstein's special relativity shattered that, showing us that time is relative to the observer, that different observers experience different durations, and that past, present, and future are not universal, but depend on who is measuring.
Bitch, you suck my motherfucking dick.
The block universe picture tells us that all moments past, present, future exist simultaneously in four-dimensional space-time, and that the flow of time we experience is a subjective illusion, perhaps generated by the thermodynamic arrow of entropy. The arrow of time, the reason time feels like it moves in one direction, is not written into the fundamental laws of physics, but emerges from a special, unexplained low-entropy initial condition of the universe. Quantum mechanics reveals that at the fundamental level, events can have indefinite causal order, that the timing and sequencing of events can be quantum superposed, that causality itself can be fuzzy. The Wheeler-DeWitt equation tells us that in quantum gravity, time does not appear at the fundamental level at all. It is not a primitive variable in the deepest equations of physics. In the holographic principle and the ER equals EPR correspondence suggests that time and space are emergent from quantum entanglement, that the geometry of space-time, including its temporal dimension, is constructed from information, from quantum correlations, from the deep interconnectedness of all things. Time, the most intimate, undeniable feature of human experience, the thing we feel most certainly. The thing that gives our lives their narrative structure, the thing that makes memory, anticipation, and hope possible is, according to the deepest physics we have, not fundamental. It is emergent. It is relational. It is perspectival. It arises from the complex dance of quantum correlations in a system of enormous complexity, and at the deepest level, the universe knows nothing of time at all. But here's what I want you to hold on to, because this is where science becomes philosophy, and philosophy becomes wisdom. The fact that time is not fundamental does not mean that your experience of time is false or unimportant. The fact that time emerges from something deeper does not diminish the reality of this moment. Temperature is not fundamental, it emerges from the average kinetic energy of molecules, but you still feel the warmth of sunlight on your face. And that warmth is real. Consciousness itself may emerge from neurological processes that have no obvious connection to the feeling of being alive. But the feeling is real. Emergence does not mean illusion. What it means is that reality has layers, and different layers are real in different ways, appropriate to the scale and complexity of the systems involved. At the Planck scale, at distances of 10 to the negative 35 meters and times of 10 to the negative 43 seconds, there is no time. There is quantum foam, space-time fluctuations, geometry dissolving into probabilistic uncertainty. There is no meaningful before or after, but as you move to larger scales, as quantum correlations build up, as complexity accumulates, as entropy increases from that mysterious low entropy beginning, time crystallizes out of the quantum fog. The arrow of time becomes defined. Cause and effect become distinguishable. The past becomes fixed and the future becomes open, not because the laws of physics require it, but because of the thermodynamic asymmetry that our universe inherited from its initial conditions. And as you move to the human scale, to the scale of brains and bodies and cultures and civilizations, time becomes the most real and immediate thing in experience. Every thought you have is a temporal process. Every memory you carry is a record of past states. Every plan you make is a model of future states. Consciousness itself may be fundamentally a temporal process, a constant updating of a model of the world, a weaving together of past and present and anticipated future into the seamless stream of awareness that you experience as being you. So when physics says that time does not fundamentally exist, it is not saying that your life is meaningless, that change is illusory, that the past and future are fictions. It is saying something far more interesting, that the time you experience, the arrow of causality you inhabit, the narrative structure that makes you a person with a The arrow of causality you inhabit, the narrative structure that makes you a person with a history and a future, all of this is a beautiful, complex, emergent phenomenon arising from a timeless quantum substrate.
Oh my God!
Your experience of duration and sequence and change is the universe discovering itself, constructing meaning and order and narrative from quantum correlations at their deepest level. Know nothing of when or before or after.
Man, this is good.
And there is one more thing I want to leave you with.
You suck my dick, bitch. Suck my dick, bitch. You
in a divided Europe,
dick.
One man rose up with a catechism in his hand and faith burning in his heart, while crowds were turning away from the church. He was quietly reigniting hope with words that were simple, yet powerful. He wasn't a martyr of blood, but one of effort, wisdom,
Suck my motherfucking
His name?
dick.
St. Peter Canisius, known as the Hammer of Heretics and the second apostle of Germany. He didn't shout, he convinced. In this video, you'll discover the story of a saint who didn't just stand up to the Reformation. He shaped entire generations. Get ready to see how faith can transform a nation, and maybe even your life. Have you ever wondered what could drive someone to completely change the course of their life because of faith? The story of St. Peter Canisius starts long before he became a doctor of the church. He was born on May 8th, 1521, in the city of Nijmegen, in what's now the Netherlands. His father, Jacob Canis, was a well-known figure, essentially the mayor of the city. The family was noble, respected, and had strong political influence. His mother, Egidia, sadly passed away shortly after giving birth to him. That loss marked the beginning of childhood debt, while privilege came with its own challenges. From a young age, Peter was encouraged to pursue law. Back then, that was the natural path for someone from a wealthy and influential family like the Canises. At 15, he was sent to the prestigious University of Cologne, one of the oldest in Europe. There, he dove into his studies with intense focus. In just 4 years, he graduated with a Master of Arts degree, basically the equivalent of a modern master's in philosophy. By the age of 19, he was already a respected academic. But Canisius's life was about to take a much different turn. The university setting wasn't just about books and lectures. Peter also came into contact with people of deep spiritual life. He regularly visited the Carthusian monastery of St. Barbara, where he met monks who lived in silence and contemplation. That's where he first encountered the spirituality of the Devotio Moderna, a movement focused on a more personal and intimate relationship with God. That experience sparked something new inside him. He began to wonder if he was truly living the life God had called him to. Can you think of a turning point in your life that changed everything? For Peter Canisius, that moment came in 1543. He took part in the spiritual exercises led by none other than Blessed Peter Faber, one of the first companions of St. Ignatius of Loyola. During those days of silence, prayer, and reflection, something shifted inside him. His faith stopped being just a theory or an academic subject. It became something real, something urgent. That's when Peter made his choice. He would give his life entirely to Christ. Joining the Society of Jesus wasn't an easy decision. The Jesuits had only recently been approved by the church, and many people still viewed them with suspicion. But Canisius didn't hesitate. At just 22, he became the first Jesuit from the German-speaking world. It was like he was accepting a secret mission, defending the Catholic faith in regions deeply shaken by the Reformation. Would you have the courage to leave everything behind and take on such a risky mission, relying only on God's grace? As soon as he joined the order, Canisius fully embraced the Ignatian spirit. Obedience, humility, deep study. Stupid! He rented a simple house in Cologne, and with a few other young Jesuits, started the first Jesuit community in Germany. They were a small group with hardly any resources, but their hearts were on fire. That little house became the foundation for what would grow into a powerful spiritual and intellectual movement, the Catholic Counter-Reformation. Canisius quickly stood out among his peers. His intelligence, discipline, and charisma made him a natural leader within society. But what truly set him apart was his ability to connect faith and reason.
Come on,
he didn't just want to win
dickhole.
debates. He wanted to
Suck
reach
my
people's
dick,
hearts.
bitch.
That's why his superiors entrusted him with huge responsibilities,
Suck my
even at a
fucking
young age.
dick.
Not long after joining the Jesuits, Peter was sent to work alongside Cardinal Otto Truxas von Waldburg, one of the most influential church leaders in Germany. Before he even turned 30, he was participating in the Council of Trent, working with top theologians, and helping make decisions that would shape the future of the Catholic Church. His mission was clear: bring the German people back to the faith, not with force or hatred, but through teaching, prayer, and personal witness. It was a work of spiritual rebuilding. And what about you? Have you noticed how God can work through the small, sincere decisions we make? St. Peter Canisius didn't begin his journey with a grand plan. He simply said yes to God's will during a moment of deep prayer, and that was enough to change everything. When Peter Canisius joined the Society of Jesus, he began a journey that would take him through universities, palaces, prisons, spiritual battlefields, and major church assemblies. By the age of 25, he was already a respected priest and theologian. And as we mentioned earlier, in 1547, he played an active role in the Council of Trent, alongside giants like Diego Lainez and Alfonso Salmeron, his fellow Jesuits. Those meetings would shape the Catholic Church's response to the Protestant Reformation. And even though he was still young, he didn't stay silent. He spoke up with conviction, clarity, and a deep love for the truth. And that was just the beginning of a massive mission. The following year, St. Ignatius of Loyola personally called him to Rome. There, Canisius completed his spiritual formation and was soon sent to Messina in Sicily. His assignment? Teach rhetoric to young students, not just through eloquent lectures, but through the example of a holy life. That might sound like a small detail, but it was part of the Jesuit method, forming both the mind and the heart. Have you ever stopped to think how many lives can be changed by a good teacher? Peter knew this, and he took his role seriously. But Italy was just a stepping stone. In 1549, the real challenge began. Peter Canisius was sent to the Duchy of Bavaria, the heart of the German-speaking world. Before leaving, he did something powerful. He went to St. Peter's Basilica in Rome and prayed before the tombs of the apostles. There, he entrusted his mission to the intercession of St. Peter and St. Paul. In his diary, he wrote that he felt a deep consolation, as if the apostles themselves had blessed him. That moment of total surrender sealed his commitment to Germany. And what a mission it was! The Catholic faith across the German-speaking regions was crumbling. Protestant teachings were spreading rapidly. Many priests had left the ministry. Churches were empty. Confusion was everywhere. But Canisius didn't flinch. He believed the solution wasn't to attack, it was to teach. And that's why his strategy was clear: education, preaching, and personal example. A living faith is passed on through witness. When he arrived in Bavaria, Canisius got involved with the University of Ingolstadt, where he served as dean, rector, and eventually vice-chancellor. But he didn't stay locked inside the academic world. He went out, visiting hospitals, prisons, and small villages, preaching the gospel with simplicity and passion. Can you picture a brilliant scholar bending down to care for the sick or chat with peasants? That's exactly what he did. Peter Canisius didn't just want to persuade, he wanted to love. And real love always opens doors. Every step he took in Germany was like planting a seed. His gentle but firm approach won over even those who had walked away from the church. He wasn't the kind of preacher who yelled or condemned. He listened, he proposed, and he taught with patience. In a time of intense religious conflict, his presence became a beacon of hope. And little by little, college by college, city by city, Peter Canisius helped rebuild the Catholic heart of Germany. The mission was only beginning, but the roots were already sinking deep. In the end, it wasn't just his arguments that made him so effective. It was the holiness of his life. Canisius didn't just talk about God, he lived it. And honestly, that's still what speaks loudest to the world today. Have you ever heard of someone being called the second apostle of an entire nation? That's exactly the title the church gave St. Peter Canisius. The first was St. Boniface in the 8th century. The second, nearly 1,000 years later, was this tireless Jesuit who traveled across Central Europe with one goal: to reignite the Catholic faith in hearts that were drifting away. And he didn't do it with swords, decrees, or threats. He did it with intelligence, compassion, and the unwavering faith of a man deeply united. For decades, Peter Canisius never stopped. He preached in packed cathedrals and forgotten village chapels. He spoke to university students and to farmers. He advised emperors in royal courts and, on the same day, visited the sick in hospitals and the poor in prison cells. What fueled that kind of pace? A deep love for Christ and an unstoppable desire to save souls. He once said his greatest joy was seeing someone return to the faith with sincerity. In Vienna, during a moment of crisis when the diocese had no bishop, he was appointed apostolic administrator. Still, he turned down the opportunity to be ordained a bishop. Not once, but multiple times. He wanted to remain a traveling missionary, free to go wherever he was most needed. Most people wouldn't pass up that kind of power or prestige. But for Peter Canisius, it was never about titles. It was always about service. And that, in a world obsessed with status, is one incredibly powerful lesson. As preacher at St. Stephen's Cathedral in Vienna, Peter Canisius captivated crowds with his clarity and depth. But he also knew how to navigate delicate political matters, representing the church at several imperial assemblies. He took part in the Diet of Augsburg, the Colloquy of Worms, and served as a close advisor to emperors like Ferdinand I and his son Maximilian. Despite the influence he held, he never strayed from a life of prayer and deep spirituality. Through his own example, he showed that it's absolutely possible to be holy right in the middle of the world. Over the course of his mission, Peter Canisius traveled roughly 30,000 kilometers, on foot, on horseback, or by boat. That's over 18,000 miles, without cars, planes, or trains. Just rain, snow, heat, fatigue, and still he pressed on. Wherever he went, he opened schools, reorganized dioceses, trained priests, and catechized entire communities. When he began, the Society of Jesus was still small in Germany. By the time he was done, it had become a driving force in the Counter-Reformation, largely thanks to his leadership and relentless vision. It's no exaggeration to say that Canisius helped rebuild the very foundations of Catholicism in the German-speaking world. And he did it with a crystal clear strategy: educate both the mind and the heart. That's why he invested so heavily in education. The Jesuit schools he founded became known for their intellectual and spiritual excellence. Students left not just smarter, but holier. In an age of religious conflict, when Catholics and Protestants often clashed with harsh words and bitter accusations, Peter Canisius chose a different path. He believed the truth had to be proclaimed, absolutely, but it had to be done with love and wisdom. Instead of attacking the reformers as heretics, he calmly explained the Catholic faith with patience and clarity. His words were gentle but firm, and they touched hearts. He once said, "By harsh words, we do not heal the sick. We only make them incurable." That kind of approach was rare and incredibly brave. While many church leaders leaned into aggressive rhetoric, Canisius insisted on speaking respectfully, even with those who disagreed. He refused to launch personal attacks on Luther, Calvin, or Melanchthon. Instead, he focused on showcasing the beauty of the church, not just pointing out others' errors. And that attitude won hearts. After all, aren't we all more open to dialogue when treated with dignity? Canisius was a master of blending firm doctrine with pastoral charity. He also didn't hold back when it came to criticizing the church itself, especially lazy clergy, religious ignorance, and the lack of pastoral care. He argued that the Reformation only gained so much traction because many Catholics had stopped living out their faith. His mission wasn't just about converting Protestants. It was about renewing the Catholic Church from within. And it all started with his own example. Peter Canisius was known for his prayer life, humility, and discipline. He practiced what he preached, and that's what made all the difference. Another key to his success was his clarity. His sermons, books, and catechisms were written in a language people could actually understand. No theological jargon or confusing phrases, just straight talk. He wanted regular people to truly grasp what the church taught. And maybe that's why he was so effective. His words didn't cause confusion. They brought light. To Canisius, evangelization meant making the faith clear and accessible. He also urged Rome to be more sensitive to the realities of the German people. He deeply understood their culture, their struggles, and their pain. He knew many had turned to Protestantism not out of rebellion, but out of ignorance or disillusionment. That's why he would say, if treated well, the Germans will give everything. He didn't see them as enemies to defeat, but as wounded children in need of healing. His pastoral compassion was born of prayer and a deep love for each soul. If he ever had an unofficial motto, it could be summed up in 3 words: clarity, charity, and constancy. He taught with clarity, corrected with love, and acted with tireless perseverance. He didn't give up, even when faced with exhaustion or rejection. And honestly, how many of us today could use a little more of that spirit?
God damn it.
In a world so divided, St. Peter Canisius' example is more relevant than ever. It's possible to stand firm in truth without ever losing gentleness. If his name has echoed through the centuries, a huge part of that is thanks to his incredible body of writing. His most famous work, the Summa Doctrini Christiani, published in 1555, became known as the Major Catechism. It featured 221 questions and answers, a powerful tool that didn't just teach Catholic doctrine, but strengthened it against the storms of the Reformation. It wasn't just a book of theology, it was a spiritual shield for anyone trying to stay faithful to the church. Can you imagine learning theology from a saint? But Canisius didn't stop there. Knowing that not everyone had the same education, he wrote the Catechismus Minimus in 1556, specifically designed for children and beginners. The following year, he released the Parvis Catechismus Catholicorum, a more complete version aimed at high school and university students. With these works, he created a true teaching trilogy, reaching everyone from the simplest layperson to the most learned scholar. This educational vision made him not just a theologian, but a true master of formation. His catechisms became a publishing phenomenon. While he was still alive, over 200 editions had already been printed across Europe, translated into more than 20 languages. And remember,
God damn it.
This was in a time when printing books was expensive and labor-intensive. Yet people wanted to learn from Canisius. In Germany, many didn't even call it a catechism. They simply said, grab the Canisius. His name became synonymous with solid Catholic formation. Pretty amazing, right? The secret to that success? Simplicity, clarity, and total fidelity to the church's teaching. Peter Canisius knew how to adapt his message to different audiences without watering down the truth. His language was approachable, often drawing directly from Scripture. He understood that people were desperate for clear answers in the middle of spiritual confusion. That's why, even today, theologians and historians still study his catechisms. They weren't just effective, they were timeless. But Canisius didn't stop at catechisms. He made original contributions to theology too, writing on spirituality, Mariology, Christian education, and biblical interpretation. One of his most famous works, De Maria Virgin Incomparabili, 1577, is a great example. In it, he defended Marian doctrine using Scripture, the Church Fathers, and tradition. It was a strong, scholarly response to Protestant criticism, firm but never combative, showing once again how faith and intellect could walk hand in hand. Beyond theology, he compiled homilies, meditations, collections of prayers, and translations of patristic texts. He believed in the power of the written word to reach where the preacher's voice couldn't. And so he used his pen as a tool for evangelization. He wrote with passion, but always with structure. Every sentence was carefully crafted to teach, move, and transform. His literary legacy spans centuries. Long before social media, Peter Canisius was already an influencer of the faith through ink and parchment. With his books, he evangelized without even needing to be physically present. He trained priests, catechists, and entire families. And the most beautiful part? It all flowed from a life deeply rooted in prayer and the Eucharist. His devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary held a special place in his life. From a young age, he saw in Mary a spiritual guide who led souls to Jesus. It wasn't just emotional affection. It was deep theology. He believed that the Mother of God was the safest, most secure path to Christ. That's why he passionately promoted the daily rosary and encouraged participation in Marian congregations wherever he went. One of his most enduring Marian legacies was inserting the phrase, "Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners," into the Hail Mary. Believe it or not, that wasn't part of the prayer at the time. He added it to his 1555 catechism, years before it was officially confirmed by the Catechism of the Council of Trent in 1566. That tiny addition, now so familiar to us, shows how his influence wasn't just spiritual. It shaped doctrine and daily devotion. But Canisius wasn't satisfied with surface-level piety. He wanted Catholics to deeply understand who Mary was and her role in salvation history. That's why he wrote De Maria Virgin Incomparabili, to explain, defend, and celebrate Marian theology. At a time when Protestants were attacking Marian doctrine, Canisius didn't respond with anger. He responded with truth. He showed that honoring Mary wasn't idolatry. It was a recognition of God's work in her. Her purity, humility, and faith made her a model for every Christian. He wrote with tenderness, but also with scholarly precision, winning over theologians, clergy, and everyday believers alike. To this day, many consider him a father of modern Mariology. He also promoted the personal consecration to Mary, seeing it as a powerful path to grow closer to Christ. In his letters and sermons, he often reminded people, those who draw near to Mary will always find themselves closer to her Son. For him, true discipleship could never be separated from love for the Blessed Mother. This Marian spirituality was central to his mission of re-evangelizing Central Europe, and it remains
a second on the vertical stream, and we should be live here on Twitch in a second, and we're going to be live momentarily here on TikTok. In fact, I need to change the name of the TikTok stream though. Let's see. They don't have enough room for this particular topic today, so I'm just going to write Christianity is a failure. Should have wrote Jesus is a failure, but what are you going to do? Alright, so we should be live on all the platforms. The only thing left to do is I'm going to open up the stream on my phone, and then I'll have you log in to the TikTok stream on your phone, and then people will see that we're live together on TikTok, and we'll essentially be merged. It'll be a good time.
Cool. Yep, I see you here.
Suck my dick.
Although we don't, I don't know. Oh, there you are. Perfect. Should be loaded in a second.
So turn on my video.
Alright, we should be good to go then on all the platforms. Friends, welcome in. We are doing a topic that I think, this will be our second time running the topic. I got my friend Calvin with me today. Some of you are like, hey, great to see Calvin here. Because a lot of you already know unquestionable Calvin. However, there are probably some people, I'm sure, that, because our community is still learning everybody, might have a new face on the screen. So I've actually known Calvin since like the day I got on TikTok. It's like 3 years. The deconstruction community on TikTok was a little bit smaller back then, and Calvin was already there before me. And so I've actually been familiar with the work for a long time, so I'm really excited to get to share a screen with him today. But Calvin, tell everybody a little bit about where the best places to find your content are, what type of content you do, and what are maybe some of your favorite topics to explore.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Justin, for having me on. It's a pleasure to actually get to do something with you. I know we've been talking for like you said, years basically, and I'm always a fan of your stuff. I listen to the stream all the time, and it's a pleasure to be here. So thanks for collaborating with me. But yeah, guys, I'm Unquestionable Calvin. I talk to people about what they believe, why they believe it. I do online debates similar to what Justin does here, and mostly focused around atheism and deconstructing Christianity, deconstructing conspiracy theories. I more so come from kind of like a spiritual, conspiratorial background with a little sprinkle of Jesus in there. Not super hardcore Christian growing up, but it was a lot of, I call it finger waving, like, hey, watch out, Jesus is watching. And not really a whole lot of, still going to church once in a while until my parents divorced, and my mom being a single mom just couldn't bring us to church as often as she wanted to. So it just kind of got put on the back burner, and I fell more into conspiracy theories. And so I tend to talk about conspiratorial beliefs, spirituality. Nowadays, it's more so deconstructing Christianity and the Bible. And I'm a musician. I play music and stuff. I've got a couple songs out there you can listen to. They're not great, but you can listen to them. And I'm live like once a week on all streaming platforms on Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. It's Unquestionable Calvin everywhere. You can find me everywhere doing this stuff. You can't shut me up.
Now, on the conspiracy theories, I found in the past there's like a large crossover between religious people and people who get into conspiracy theories. What were some of your favorite, and are there some conspiracy theories that you think might actually have been proven true?
I think that there's plenty of conspiracy theory. More so, like, I guess you could say, like, government conspiracy theories that that's kind of, I guess, been proven true to an extent. But yeah, my favorite conspiracy growing up was always like the Bigfoot stuff. Right? I always was a sucker for a good Bigfoot story. But up until like the end of my like kind of tinfoil hat era, it was more ancient lost high technology. So like vibrational technology used to build pyramids and Atlantis and ancient civilizations and that kind of stuff. And it was kind of because of Christianity that it led me to start deconstructing those conspiratorial beliefs. Because, I obviously was like straight up conspiracy theorists, like, the government's run by reptilian aliens who are abducting people. Hurricane Katrina was a false flag operation by the reptilian aliens to abduct the homeless population and send them to the Draco constellation. That's the type of stuff I was into, And as I started to kind of look into some like flood myths, like I said, like ancient lost high technology and Atlantis, like flood myths are all around those. It was like right when I started learning that like all these different civilizations had flood myths, and then I was like, kind of Christian at the time. I figured like what better way to get a hold of what's going on than to just like pick up the book that I apparently believe in that I've never read, and so I picked up a Bible and I read from cover to cover, and needless to say, I wasn't impressed. I was a little disappointed by what I read. I wasn't comfortable calling myself an atheist by the end of the first read-through. I just didn't like the God. But by the second read-through, I picked it up a second time and, was studying and annotating everything along the way. And by the New Testament, I was calling myself an atheist.
I get it. Yeah. And your Bible is pretty well known as is mine for having many color-coded tabs.
I got a thing off camera here. Yeah, it's the talk of the town. It's just a bunch of color tabs. And every tab color has a corroboration to it. I have like an index as to like what they mean and everything. And I never really planned on sharing this with anybody. I just kind of did it for my own sake, and it just kind of fell into TikTok eventually after my music content started getting bombarded with Christianity. So I had to do something about it.
Gotcha. My dog up real quick. Yeah, no worries. While Calvin's doing that, let me grab, we'll do a couple super chats. I think we have a guest already ready to go. I think Stan is ready to rock and roll. So we'll grab Stan. If you're watching on Twitch or YouTube, you can use the link on the screen to join the conversation. It's tiny.cc/DZ Live. If you're watching on TikTok, you would request using the TikTok request button, just like you would any particular way. We'll bring in the guest. We are kind of specifically targeting Christianity tonight. But I would imagine if you have something Christian adjacent, we're more than happy to discuss it. But the topic is that Christianity is a failed apocalyptic blood magic death cult, and this is kind of wordy, but basically the general idea here is that Christianity, first of all, doesn't rise to the occasion in that it makes claims that don't come true, meaning the idea of Christianity just failed. And then obviously we can argue about whether or not it's apocalyptic. It clearly is an end of the world apocalyptic religion that includes blood magic and was also a death cult. It seems all pretty obvious claims. You kind of got a 4-point claim. But let me get a couple super chats. We'll get Stan in here and then Nikki after Stan. The Knights Who Say Knee, good to see you tonight. Says Justin, doing the Ian fashionably late thing. Gay 4, Justin. You held the shift key 1 too many letters, but I got you, buddy. Knights Who Say Knee, I don't know if I'm fashionably late. I was like within the minute mark. I know you guys are used to me starting right on the dot.
Watch our wonderful selves on television. Where's that human workhorse to watch our wonderful selves on?
She's cute.
Watch our wonderful selves on television.
I want to get her blinking.
Watch our wonderful selves on television. Watch our wonderful selves on.
There. She's blinking. She's cute.
Television. Where's that human workhorse you call a husband?
Saturday mornings in 1967. You'd wake up early, pour yourself a bowl of cereal, and plant yourself in front of the TV.
Alright, I gotta touch her head. She's cute. Whoop.
Watch our wonderful selves on television. Where's that? Watch our wonderful selves on television. Watch our wonderful selves on television. Watch our wonderful selves on television. Watch our wonderful selves on television.
I was touching her head while she I was touching
Saturday
her head
mornings
while
in
she
1967. You'd wake up early, pour yourself a bowl of cereal, and plant yourself in front of the TV because something special was about to come on. A show about 4 unlikely heroes who flew through space, battled impossible villains, and bickered like a real family the whole time. It was something nobody had ever seen on a Saturday morning before. So today, we're going back to where it all began, with the Fantastic Four. 1967. 15 weird facts you didn't know.
Excellent fart.
Fact 15. It all started with a kid reading a comic book. The whole thing began not in a boardroom or a Hollywood pitch meeting, but with a boy sitting on a couch reading a comic book. In the fall of 1966, a television agent named Cy Fisher noticed his son Stuart flipping through a Fantastic Four issue. Curious, he asked Stuart whether he'd want to see it turned into a cartoon. The kid's answer was an enthusiastic yes. Fisher took that gut reaction seriously. The very next day, he called up Joseph Barbera, the co-founder of Hanna-Barbera Productions, and pitched him the idea over the phone. Barbera read the comic himself, agreed it had real potential, and together, the two of them reached out to Stan Lee at Marvel Comics. A deal was struck, a pitch was put together, and ABC bought the show for its fall 1967 Saturday morning lineup. That the show for its fall 1967 Saturday morning lineup. Bought the show for its fall 1967 Saturday morning lineup. That's how fast things could move back then. And to think, it all happened because a kid was sitting at home with a comic. What's worth appreciating about that story is what it says about the era. Today, adapting a Marvel property into any kind of media involves years of development, endless committee meetings, and enough legal review to fill a filing cabinet.
Planet, no living thing shall remain. Then I will move on and...
Back in 1966, a father noticed his son... Back in 1966, a father noticed his son enjoying a comic, picked up the phone, and within a relatively short window, a deal was in place. the industry was young enough and loose enough that passion and a quick phone call could set something genuinely big in motion. Stuart Fisher probably had no idea what he'd helped start. Fact 14. This was Marvel's second animated show, but the first to focus on just one team. By the time the Fantastic Four cartoon premiered on September 9th, 1967, Marvel had already dipped its toes into animation. In 1966, Grand Trey Lawrence Animation had produced The Marvel Superheroes, a syndicated package show that rotated through segments featuring Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, the Hulk, and the Submariner. But that show was a very different beast. It used extremely limited animation, essentially just moving the existing comic book panels around on screen with minimal motion. Characters' mouths would open and close, a fist might pan across the frame, but the images themselves were lifted almost directly from the printed pages of the comics. It was cheap, it was fast, and it got the job done. But it wasn't what most people would call full animation. The Fantastic Four, on the other hand, was produced by Hanna-Barbera and animated from the ground up with original character artwork, backgrounds, and movement. It was the first Marvel property to receive that kind of full original animation treatment, and the first to be dedicated entirely to a single comic book series, rather than rotating between characters. Hanna-Barbera was the gold standard for Saturday morning television at that point. They'd already produced the Flintstones, Scooby-Doo wasn't far off, and their superhero output, Space Ghost, Birdman, was defining what animated action could look like on a weekly basis. Having them produce a Marvel series was a genuine step up in ambition, and it showed on screen. That made it a significant step forward for Marvel on television, even if it only lasted one season.
Now to plot the angle and compass heading.
Fact 13. Stan Lee and Jack Kirby were consultants on the show. The creators of the Fantastic Four didn't just hand over the rights and walk away. Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, the legendary duo who had created the team back in 1961, served as consultants during the production of the series. Their involvement helped keep the show grounded in the spirit of the comics. The writing team, Phil Hahn and Jack Hanrahan, drew heavily from the original Lee and Kirby stories, and many episodes even credited the specific comic book issue they were adapted from on the title cards. It was a level of reverence for the source material that wasn't always common in Saturday morning cartoons of the era. A lot of adaptations of that period took the name and the concept and then went off and did essentially whatever they wanted. Not this one. You could feel the difference in the storytelling. The show tackled genuine science fiction concepts. Parallel dimensions, cosmic entities, alien civilizations, because those were the kinds of stories Lee and Kirby had been telling in the comics. That wasn't accidental. It came from having the people who built the original world still connected to how it was being presented. That level of creative involvement from the original authors was rare in Saturday morning television, and it's a big part of why the show felt authors was rare in Saturday morning television. Of creative involvement from the original authors was rare in Saturday morning television. And it's a big part of why the original authors was rare in Saturday morning television. And it's a big part of why the show felt more substantial than most of its peers. Fact 12. Alex Toth redesigned the characters for animation. When you think of Hanna-Barbera's
she's cute.
Alex Toth
Boop.
redesigned the characters for animation. When you think of Hanna-Barbera's superhero output from the late 1960s, Space Ghost, Birdman, the Herculoids, there's a visual clarity and bold.
Oh, there she goes
Space
again.
Birdman, the Herculoids. There's a visual clarity and boldness to those designs.
Let me get her when she's blinking.
Birdman, the Herculoids. There's a visual clarity and boldness to those designs that Birdman, the Herculoids. There's a visual clarity and boldness to those designs that holds up Birdman, the Herculoids. There's a visual clarity and boldness to those designs that holds up even today.
I have failed. Nothing. Let me at.
A lot of that is owed to one man, Alex Toth. Toth was a legendary comic book and animation artist who worked regularly with Hanna-Barbera during this period, and he was brought in to redesign the Fantastic Four characters for the cartoon. His approach simplified and sharpened the characters, making them suitable for the animation process of the time while keeping them immediately recognizable. Working in Saturday morning television in 1967 meant working within serious constraints. There was limited time, limited budget, and the characters needed to move cleanly at lower frame rates than theatrical animation. Toth understood that problem better than almost anyone. He knew that a character with too much detail would fall apart at the edges when animated on a tight production schedule. So he stripped things back, not crudely, but intelligently. He kept what mattered and cut what would only cause problems down the line. The look Toth gave the show, clean lines, strong silhouettes, and a no-nonsense visual style, was noted by critics and animation historians as one of the reasons the series held up better aesthetically than other cartoons of the era. If you go back and watch an episode today, the characters still read well on screen. That's not luck. His fingerprints are all over the look of that show.
Who touched them is to perish.
Alright. You too.
Who touched
I
them
will.
is to perish.
Fact 11. Reed and Sue were already married, unlike in the comics. Here's a subtle change that casual viewers might never have noticed. In the original Stan Lee and Jack Kirby comic, Reed...
That thing and knock the snot out of here.
What?
One of them might have a way to get through that line.
Oh. Okay.
Richards and Sue Storm were not yet married when the series began in 1961. They were a couple, sure, but they didn't actually tie the knot until Fantastic Four Annual Number 3. But they didn't actually tie the knot until Fantastic
Let me touch her head. Boop.
Four Annual Number 3, published in 1965. That issue was a genuine event at the time, complete with a guest appearance from a who's who of Marvel characters, and it sold exceptionally well. The animated series, however, decided to skip all of that backstory and simply present them as husband and wife.
Boop. I thought she had blonde hair.
To skip all of that backstory and simply present them as husband
Wait,
and
is she blinking?
series, however, decided to skip all of that backstory and
She
simply present them as husband and wife right from the start. This was done partly for simplicity and partly to keep the storytelling clean for a Saturday morning audience. A will they won't they romantic tension might have worked well in a serialized monthly comic, but it was harder to sustain in a cartoon where episodes didn't necessarily air in order and where the audience skewed toward children rather than dedicated adult readers. Outside of flashback sequences set before the team was formed, Reed and Sue in the cartoon are firmly a married couple throughout all 20 episodes. Their dynamic in the show is that of a husband and wife who happen to be superheroes, bickering occasionally, caring for each other deeply, and navigating the extraordinary situations that came with being part of the Fantastic Four. It's a small thing, but it actually changes the texture of their relationship on screen, trading the romantic uncertainty of the comics for something more grounded and settled. Fact 10. Namor the Submariner had to be replaced twice. One of the stranger behind-the-scenes stories from this show involves a character who never actually appeared in it at all, Namor the Submariner. In the comics, Namor was a significant figure in the early years of the Fantastic Four. He appeared in multiple major storylines, as a villain, as an anti-hero, and as someone with a complicated romantic interest in Sue Storm. But when Hanna-Barbera went to use him in the cartoon, there was a problem. The animation rights to Namor had already been claimed by Grant Trey Lawrence Animation, which was using him in the Marvel Superheroes syndicated show. So, when the 1967 series needed to adapt Fantastic Four stories that featured Namor, the writers had to create a replacement character. They invented Prince Triton of Pacifica, a blue-skinned underwater ruler whose kingdom was renamed from Atlantis to Pacifica to avoid any confusion with the character they couldn't use. Same general role, completely different name and look. Viewers who hadn't read the comics would never have known anything was missing. But for anyone who had, the absence of Namor was noticeable throughout the entire run of the show. Fact 9, the show aired the same morning as Spider-Man. Saturday, September 9th, 1967. A BC's lineup. If you were a young Marvel fan sitting in front of your television that morning, you had quite a schedule ahead of you. Because the Fantastic Four wasn't the only Marvel cartoon making its debut that season. Spider-Man, the animated series that would become iconic in its own right, with one of the most memorable theme songs in cartoon history, premiered on ABC the very same day. The two shows aired on the same network, on the same Saturday morning, essentially back to back. Think about what that morning meant. Two Marvel properties, both brand new, both reaching a national television audience simultaneously. Kids who had been reading those comics at the drugstore or the newsstand suddenly had their favorite characters moving and talking on the screen. That kind of thing had never happened before for Marvel. DC had long since established a presence in animation. Superman had been on film and television for decades, but Marvel was the new arrival, and September 9, 1967 was the moment it arrived in force. While Spider-Man would go on to become a much bigger cultural phenomenon, largely on the strength of that theme song and the character's broader appeal, the Fantastic Four was right there alongside it for that first season. The two shows represented Marvel's opening bet on Saturday morning television, and it was a confident one. Looking back, it's a morning that Marvel fans of a certain age remember very well.
Play on!
Fact 8. Galactus was colored green in the cartoon. Fans of the comics know Galactus very well. The planet-devouring cosmic entity, with his iconic purple armor and imposing presence. But if you tuned in to the Fantastic Four cartoon in December of 1967 to see the animated debut of this legendary villain, you might have done a double take. In the episode simply titled Galactus, the character was depicted with green skin and green armor, a notable departure from his purple and blue comic book appearance. He was also drawn as only slightly taller than the members of the Fantastic Four themselves, rather than the enormously towering figure from the pages of the comics. Some of this came down to the production limitation figure from the pages of the comics. Some of this came down to the production limitations of Saturday morning animation in the 1960s. Rendering a truly massive character consistently across scenes was a challenge, and keeping his scale accurate relative to the human characters would have required painstaking work that the schedule and budget simply didn't allow for. Making him a more human-scaled figure was a practical workaround. But the green skin, that's a harder one to explain away. Color choices in animation of that era sometimes came down to simple miscommunication between creative teams or to the practical limitations of the color palette being used in production. Whatever the reason, viewers who had been following Galactus in the pages of Fantastic Four would have been surprised to see him rendered in shades of green rather than the deep purple they'd come to associate with the character. It remains one of the more visually surprising details about the show for anyone going back to watch it today. Fact 7. Galactus was voiced by the man who played Lurch. Speaking of the Galactus episode, the voice behind that iconic cosmic villain was none other than Ted Cassidy. And if that name sounds familiar, it should. Ted Cassidy was the towering actor, standing 6 feet 9 inches tall, best known for playing Lurch, the slow-moving, deep-voiced butler on The Addams Family, which had run on ABC from 1964 to 1966. His distinctive bass voice made him a natural choice for voicing an all-powerful, world-eating space god. Cassidy would later return to Fantastic Four animation in a very different capacity. In the 1978 series, The Fantastic Four, produced by Deepachi Freleng, he provided the voice of Ben Grimm, the Thing. So the same man who was Galactus in 1967 became one of the heroes in 1978. Fact 6. Paul Frees voiced multiple characters, including the Watcher. Paul Frees was one of the most prolific voice actors in Hollywood history. By the time the Fantastic Four cartoon came along in 1967, he had already worked on hundreds of radio programs, films, and television productions. In the Fantastic Four, he was cast as the Thing, Ben Grimm, giving the character his familiar Brooklyn accent that critics singled out as one of the standout performances in the series. But Frees didn't stop there. He also voiced Uatu the Watcher, the cosmic observer who appeared in several episodes, as well as a number of additional characters across the run of the show. It was common practice in animation of that era for a single voice actor to cover multiple roles. But Frees brought such distinctiveness to each character that listeners rarely noticed the overlap. His portrayal of the Thing was described in David Perlmutter's Encyclopedia of American Animated Television Shows as one of the elements that helped compensate for the production limitations of the animation itself.
Every command, not all mankind will obey. Not the fantastic.
Fact 5. The Galactus trilogy was compressed into a single episode. In the comics, the introduction of Galactus and the Silver Surfer is a 3-issue storyline. Fantastic Four issues 48, 49, and 50, published in 1966. Known informally as the Galactus trilogy, it's considered one of the greatest stories in Marvel Comics history, a sweeping cosmic epic that fundamentally changed the scale of the Marvel Universe. Getting all of that into a 22-minute Saturday morning cartoon episode was no small challenge. The writers had to make some significant cuts and adjustments. The most notable change involved the character of Alicia Masters, Ben Grimm's blind girlfriend, who had played a crucial emotional role in the original story. The most notable change involved the character of Alicia Masters, Ben Grimm's blind girlfriend, who had played a crucial emotional role in the original story by connecting with the Silver Surfer and appealing to his conscience. Since Alicia Masters never appeared in the 1967 cartoon at all, that role was reassigned to Sue Richards. It was Sue who reached the Silver Surfer's humanity and turned him against Galactus. The story was compressed, reshaped, and retold in under half an hour, and that episode remains one of the most ambitious the show ever attempted. Fact 4. The show was canceled just the show ever attempted. Fact 4. The show was canceled because of the violence controversy. The Fantastic Four only ran for 1 season of original episodes, 20 total, and its cancellation had less to do with ratings than with the cultural climate of the late 1960s. Throughout that era, a growing movement of parents and advocacy groups was pushing back hard against what they saw as excessive violence in children's television. This wasn't a fringe concern at the time, it was a genuine national conversation, with congressional hearings, editorials, and organized letter-writing campaigns, all putting pressure on broadcasters to clean up their programming. Networks came under increasing pressure to tone down the action in their Saturday morning lineups, and shows that featured any kind of combat or conflict were scrutinized heavily. The Fantastic Four, despite being a superhero series, was relatively restrained by today's standards. The show even used crash effect graphics, bold on-screen text like BAM or POW, similar to those popularized by the 1966 Batman television series, rather than showing direct physical impacts. It was a deliberate creative decision to stylize violence in a way that softened it. But in the climate of 1968, it wasn't enough to satisfy the critics. ABC canceled it, and the network moved toward programming that was considered safer and less confrontational. Ironically, the show had found its audience. ABC still aired the series in reruns for several years after the cancellation, a sign that there was still a genuine viewership for the show, even after original production had stopped. The audience didn't leave. The network simply decided not to make any more for them.
Our giants grows perilous. Your power has exceeded my expectations.
Fact 3. Blastar appeared before he had even become established in the comics. One of the more unusual details about the 1967 Fantastic Four cartoon is just how current its villain roster was at the time. The show drew from Lee and Kirby's then ongoing comic stories, which meant some of the characters it featured were genuinely brand new, not yet the classic villains they'd become in later decades. Blastar, the living bomb burst, a deposed alien dictator with the ability to discharge destructive blasts of energy, appeared in the cartoon's episode lineup after making his comic book debut in Fantastic Four issue number 62, which had a cover date of May 1967. That means the show was adapting an essentially brand new character, one that had barely had time to establish itself in the comics before being animated. It speaks to how tightly the production was tracking the source material. The writers weren't just going back through the back catalog and picking the most famous stories. They were staying close to what Lee and Kirby were producing in real time, which meant the show occasionally pulled in characters before those characters had even had time to build a following among comic readers. For fans watching at the time, it meant the cartoon and the comics were almost running in parallel. If you were buying the monthly issues at your local newsstand, you might have seen Blastar debut in print, and then turned around weeks later to see him show up on your television screen. That kind of immediacy gave the show a sense of connection to the larger Marvel world that most cartoons of the era simply couldn't offer. Fact 2. The rights situation has kept the show-off home video for decades. Here's a strange consequence of corporate history that has frustrated fans for years. The 1967 Fantastic Four cartoon has never received a proper, widely available home video release in the United States. And the reason comes down to who owns what. When Hanna-Barbera produced the series, the rights to the show were split between Marvel Comics and Hanna-Barbera Productions. That kind of arrangement was common in the television industry of the 1960s and 70s, but it created significant complications down the road when the companies involved changed hands multiple times over the following decades. Marvel, of course, was acquired by the Walt Disney Company in 2009. A deal worth over $4 billion that gave Disney control of the Marvel brand and its vast library of characters. But Hanna-Barbera's library, including its share of the 1967 Fantastic Four cartoon, had been purchased by Time Warner, the parent company of Warner Brothers. And Warner Brothers, of course, owns DC Comics, Marvel's biggest direct competitor. So, the 1967 Fantastic Four sits in an unusual limbo, a Marvel property partially controlled by the company that owns DC. Each side holds a piece of something neither can fully exploit without the other. The show aired on Cartoon Network in the 1990s and on the Boomerang channel in 2000. But after Disney acquired Marvel, the situation became complicated enough that no formal, widely available home video. The situation became complicated enough.
Spit.
That no formal, widely available home video release has followed. It remains one of the harder classic cartoons to track down through official channels, a victim not of its quality, but of decades of corporate history.
Escape is quite different.
Fact 1. The show was referenced in the 2025 Marvel Cinematic Universe film. After nearly 6 decades, the release of the 2025
Oh, she's cute. Wrong one. She's cute. She's cute. I touched her head. She's cute. She's cute. She's cute. Best time mistake I ever made. Taking this so I can see that cute girl. Alright, goddammit, play the fucking theme song, see? Alright, goddammit, play the fucking theme
song. Spider-Man and his amazing friends, Iceman and Firestar.
I wish I could fire out of my hand like that.
Spider-Man and his amazing friends.
Tonight we have David in California. Dude, can you hear us?
Hello?
Hello? Hello, Dave.
Hello?
Hello, we hear you.
How are you?
It's all right.
Oh,
it's all right.
yeah.
You brought up a topic.
That game.
It looks like you brought up a topic that I'd be happy to talk to you about. Do please express what that is.
Okay, I brought up about faith, and I listened to you. I don't know about Aaron, but I've listened to Aaron, and that you don't believe that faith is a good thing, or do you think that it's weak, or
Faith is the most dishonest and auto-deceptive position it is possible to hold. If you want to find truth, if you're a true seeker of truth, the very first thing you will need to do is abandon your faith, because faith will cause you to lie, to deceive even yourself.
Okay, when you come to a traffic light, I'm sure you've heard this before, or when you get on a plane or something, or, you're exercising faith, and
nope,
I think that people... Okay, why aren't you?
Because accepting evident probabilities is exactly the opposite of faith. Faith, in the context that we're talking about for an atheist and a theist, then we are talking about a complete conviction that is not supported by evidence, not dependent on evidence. I've often phrased it that it is an unreasonable conviction that is assumed without reason and defended against all reason. You believe what you believe because you accept an erroneous assumption of authority rather than evidence. So if I come to you with any amount of evidence, you will not change your mind because of the evidence. You will only believe what the authority tells you to believe simply because the authority tells you to believe it. That's the difference. Faith versus not faith.
Well, we all believe in authority. I mean, you believe that, that Lincoln and Alexander and Washington existed through history books.
No, I don't. Not on authority, on evidence. I don't believe in authority. As Carl Sagan put it, arguments from authority are worthless.
Authority is people who have, studied and examined and have. Oh, really?
And they have evidence. And they're just saying, unlike authority, George Carlin put the evidence.
As George Carlin put it, I have huge authority as hope. Just not as many people who understand that.
Okay, now I know that you don't accept, the historicity, I guess, of the Bible, let's say, but
it's just that I don't accept it. You can prove that it didn't happen. We have
okay, but you're going against historians and biblical.
You're going against, historians agree with us. The Bible did not happen the way the Bible describes anything.
Okay, how do you explain things like the Dead Sea Scrolls were exactly how they were found, 3,000 years ago, and practically all the Hebrew words were
3,000 years ago. They were found in the 1940s.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
They were written just
so here's the thing, I don't even know what the Dead Sea Scrolls are. So I'm going to have to put in some context here. So the Dead Sea Scrolls are some of our earliest written forms of what becomes the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament, as Christians call it. They are written anywhere between the 2nd century BC and the 1st century AD, which also means that even the oldest fragment of the Bible is still centuries after the alleged stories that we would find in there. The earliest piece of Genesis that we find is still thousands of years after the alleged Adam and Eve. or example. And
let me add something else for you.
My motherfucking
I'm sorry to cut you off, Aaron. Let me add something else for you. I host a weekly Bible study Saturday mornings called Blasphemers Bible, and one of my recurrent guests is Dr. Kip Davis, who is a Dead Sea Scrolls scholar. He's an expert on the Dead Sea Scrolls. So I have a handful of people who speak Hebrew, or who speak Koine Greek, and who speak Aramaic, or who speak Akkadian, and then we have Kip Davis, who is the Dead Sea Scrolls scholar on this. So if you'd like to listen to those, we can certainly help you understand the origins of the Bible, but they're not history. We know absolutely for certain, because even Christian scientists, Christian biologists admit, Adam and Eve never happened. The Garden of Eden is a parable that's based on elder mythology from polytheistic religions. Noah's Ark did not happen. We can prove that, and have done, past tense. The Tower of Babel didn't happen either, neither did the Exodus. None of that shit was history. So it's not just that I don't accept it, I know better. But we were talking about faith, so let's get back to that topic. We're talking, just that I don't accept it, I know better. But we were talking about faith, so let's get back to that topic.
Okay, but I can get the. I don't want to go into some other time, maybe, but faith. Okay, as you know, the evidence of seeing things not seen. But I'm saying that even doctors have faith, don't they? The doctors do not heal, right? You know that when you go to a doctor, he stitches.
Let me help you here.
Faith
is not trust. Faith is not trust. Faith is believing when the evidence says otherwise. It's believing anyway, even when the evidence says otherwise. Friedrich Nietzsche said that faith is not wanting to know what is true. Mark Twain said that faith is believing what you know ain't so. Faith is believing when common sense tells you not to. That's another famous one. I don't remember who wrote that. I wrote an article on this where I put in, I think, close to 100 quotations from famous philosophers and theologians and so forth down through the ages, where they're all giving their understanding of faith. Faith is believing what is not evidently true. It is not trusting that statistically airplanes are the safest way to travel statistically, because they are. Trusting in that statistical evidence is not faith. That's trust. In order to turn trust into faith, you need both a prefix and a suffix. If faith is a complete trust, meaning unreasonable, a complete trust that is not based on evidence, not dependent on evidence, and so no amount of evidence will ever change your mind. When they asked Ken Ham during the Ken Ham versus Bill Nye debate, what, if anything, would ever change your mind? Bill Nye said evidence. Ken Ham said nothing. Nothing will ever change his mind. That's faith. Faith is being unreasonable, believing things that are not evidently true, and then refusing to ever admit when you're wrong. That's what faith is. Lying to yourself to believe things that are not true.
Now, I agree that a lot of believers, a lot of Christians feel that way, and I can see where you're coming from. But when you say that faith is not about trust, that kind of negates the definition of faith, because there has to be something there for you to put your belief into.
Authority.
In other words, I want to be faithful to my girlfriend or wife.
You're mixing
I can use it in a sentence like that.
Yeah, but that's what is it? I forget the logical fallacy, the equivocation. So you're using two different contexts. Having faith in your wife is not the same thing as having faith in a religion. Having religious faith means believing in authority. You have an erroneous assumption of authority. So you're going to believe what the Bible says regardless of what the Bible says, even when the evidence proves it wrong. Case in point, William Jennings Bryan, who ran for president, was one of the attorneys in the Scopes Monkey trial in 1925. He said that if the Bible said that Jonah swallowed the whale, he would believe it. Because he's going to believe in authority. It's not possible for a man to swallow a whale, but Jonah's going to believe it because the Bible says he believes in authority. If the Bible said that Jonah swallowed the whale, he would believe that. Doesn't matter how ridiculous it is, he's going to believe it. Another preacher, more recently, in a movie called Questioning Darwin, this other preacher said that if somewhere in the Bible he were to see that the Bible said that 2 + 2 = 5, he wouldn't question it. He would not question what he reads in the Bible. He would believe it and find some way to work it out and understand it. So it doesn't matter what the facts are. It doesn't matter what the mathematic proof is. They're going to believe in the authority proclamation simply because it is an authority, even when the authority is wrong and we can prove it. That's what faith is.
Okay, you saying that you're saying that there. Okay, I agree that there are a lot of Christians, like I say, that are misled. You know, like maybe the old school Kenneth Hagin, Kenneth Copeland. I don't agree with them, but there are faith preachers like Robert Jeffries that I do believe in. And okay, as far as faith,
why?
Where do I get it from? Okay, I'm going to explain. For me, I could go into it.
Robert Jeffers runs First Baptist Church here in Dallas, where I live. He's a professional liar like the rest of them. Why would you believe him? You said there are a lot of Christians who are misled. Can you point to one who is not misled? Name one.
Yeah, Robert Jeffries. I like him a lot.
Who lies for a living? Who lies for a living?
David Hockey, David Jeremiah, Jack Hibbs. I could go on, read a lot of people that I believe that you've argued with.
I'd be happy to look up the names for. I know the first one that you brought up. He's a professional liar. The other three I don't know, but it doesn't matter. I will be happy to look them up when I get the recording later, and I'll make a video about it later. I'm going to say that there's not one who is not misled, because
there isn't one. I know it.
All of y'all believe things that are not evidently true. You believe things that are not evidently true, nor even possible, and you believe it only because of an assumption of authority over evidence. I accept evidence over authority. In other words, the authority, I don't care who it is, can be proven wrong if the facts don't back them up. If the authority told me that no one has ever set foot on this island, and we show up on that island and I see cleated boot prints walking across the beach, I'm going to know that asshole is wrong. But the believer will ignore the footprints. Will ignore the footprints and believe the authority anyway.
I disagree with a lot of authority. For example, doctors, prescribing medications these days, and I don't agree with a lot.
They're not authorities. They're experts. That's different.
They claim to be experts.
When you find out that you have cancer, are you going to go to a doctor for this, or are you going to go to your mechanic? Are you going to ask your plumber how to treat your printer or your infection, whatever? Are you going to call the Geek Squad? No, you're going to go to the person who knows more about this than you do, and you're going to rely on their expertise. It has nothing to do with authority.
Yeah, because he's an authority.
Science does not have authorities. They're experts. They're not authorities. Authority means that whatever the authority says must be taken as true and followed because the authority said so. The authority can't be wrong, even when the evidence shows otherwise. That's what believers say. Science does not have authority.
Like the federal government sounds like.
I have no idea what reference that was supposed to be. Science does not have authorities. We have experts. We have some that know more than others. That's true. But every expert can be challenged. Every expert can be shown to be wrong by the evidence. That's the difference. Authorities cannot be proved up by evidence because they simply say whatever they say, and you're supposed to believe that no matter what the facts are. And so you will ignore the facts. When they prove your authority wrong, you believe the authority anyway. That's insane, but that's faith. Faith is insane.
Okay, let's get back. You don't accept anything that the historians say about the Bible. They were Canaanites, they were Philistines, they were, do you believe these people existed, the Assyrians?
Why did we change the subject so dramatically? Because you just disagree with this about the Bible. You just said that I reject everything historians say. I never said anything like that. I never implied that. Never said anything remotely like that. I said that what historians say is that the Bible is wrong. That's what historians say. That's what archaeologists say. That's what paleontologists say. That's what geologists say. That's what anthropologists say. That's what Bible scholars say.
Okay, you're one of the very... Okay, I haven't heard that from... You can go to any college, any university. You can ask them if the people in the Bible existed. And have you done that?
They'll tell you that Moses didn't exist. Moses never existed.
They'll tell you that what?
Adam and Eve definitely never existed.
They will say that.
Most of them will hold that Jesus existed and that Pontius Pilate existed and that Herod existed. There's a handful of there are real names of people and places that really existed, but like Ethiopia and what is it, that river, the Tigris and Euphrates, those were real, right? Mm-hmm. There are real people and places, right. But most of the events never happened.
I want to know what you accept about the Bible. Do you personally accept that there was somebody as Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and those, as it is written in the Bible? Yeah, so you don't, and the reason you don't accept that is that you have
because there's no evidence into other them, books, and because there's evidence against them.
No. When you say there's no evidence, you've looked into other books that disagree with what's written. Is that?
No, it's just not just that I've read.
They're called archaeologists, and they've been digging around there for a while, and they've discovered, hey, the story about Abraham, among the problems that it has is Abraham is getting around on camel, dromedary camels, which hadn't been domesticated at the time of Abraham, would have existed. Even by the time of the alleged Exodus, dromedary camels had not been domesticated, and yet they're throughout the Genesis and Exodus narrative. So that's just one of the many things that archaeologists have pointed out and said, hey, that doesn't add up, and shows that the story was written at a later time when these other things were actually normal, and they accidentally projected them too far back into the past.
Yeah.
And when people, I think that there was a modern found of, I'm not exactly sure from who, of the Sodom and Gomorrah. I mean, when people say that, you reject when they say that they found these remains.
I know that they found a city that they're calling
here's the thing. When you say they, here's the thing. When you say they,
I can look up who exactly
was it. What you're saying, though, is because I've seen these sorts of claims. What you say they is some group at some school that has no accreditation has someone go out there and say they're going to reinterpret this thing and relocate Sodom and Gomorrah and say, hey, there's some stuff here on the ground that kind of sort of looks like it was burned. Therefore, Sodom and Gomorrah. Mm-hmm. Be careful about the anonymous they and the folklore that gets passed around and the folks that are trying to find any tiny little bit of evidence that they will twist as any way possible to fit their narrative because they are coming in with their faith and dogmas and saying, this is what we believe and we will do everything we can to show it's true and find any way to make the evidence against it go away. That is back to our original point that faith is about already believing something and then forcing any other round peg into that square hole.
Yep, so let's stick with faith for a moment. You would believe something because the Bible said it, and it doesn't matter what the evidence is. So when you interpret the Bible to say that life existed only, or that life was formed on this planet only 6,000 years ago, it doesn't matter if I show 14 different types of radiometric isotopes that were measured in thousands of locations for different geologic strata everywhere in the world. And so we now talk about tens or hundreds of thousands of different readings that are all corroborative to show that all of these geologic strata are dated in a certain sequence of millions of years old each, and we have these from everywhere in the world, and we can prove this by other means that are not radiometric either, and you're going to deny all of that, reject everything, because you have a man-made mythology written by people who didn't know what the fuck they were talking about, but which you mistook for an authority, and you're going to believe the fables over the fact. Man-made mythology written by people who didn't know what the fuck they were talking about, but which you mistook for an authority, and you're going to believe the fables over the fact. That's faith.
Okay, but by the way, I have watched your arguments with Kent Hovind, and you do have a lot of information. Okay, you realize that there are old Earth theologians like Hugh Ross, who believe
I would love to have a debate with Hugh Ross. I would love to have a debate.
Oh man, he's a brilliant scientist. I mean, you may know history.
It's worth noting Hugh Ross also believes in leprechauns, so you might want to be a bit careful. And I do mean that literally. He was literally on a live stream arguing that leprechauns are demons. No. Literally,
Hugh Ross also said that primates. Hugh Ross also said that primates do not evolve, and we have so much proof that primates evolve. But he goes by authority. He's going to believe what the Bible says, even if he finds another way to interpret it. He's still going to assume the authority, not expertise, because expertise can be challenged and over.